What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for a match review stream. Tottenham 0, Aston Villa 2 at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium yesterday. And where do we start?
That's all we got time for, people.
Where do we start with what went wrong yesterday? Because it's a common theme now. Week in, week out, we're throwing out these performances. I mean, it's hard to see when you look at the outlay of the season so far. You can probably count on one hand how many games we've played well for 90 minutes. And yesterday was no different. First half, I thought we were all right in the first half without creating too much, had a fair amount of control within the game. We had that shot cleared off the line from Harry Kane. And at half-time, I was thinking, you know, we got this game and we can go on second half, push on like we usually do in the second half and get the win. Second half comes, Lloris makes that absolute howler. We go 1-0 down and heads drop. And there was just no way back into the game. It was like, you know, under Jose Mourinho, every time we went 1-0 down or every time, you know, we would start well in games and the other team would score and then heads would just drop and there was just no way back into the game after that. I got that sense of in the game yesterday.
Yeah, and it hasn't been the case usually, usually under Conte anyway, when we do concede the first goal or have a poor opening to the game. We usually are, even if we don't end up coming back and getting any points, for example, like Liverpool or some other games, at least we give it a really good fight. And, you know,
and the fighting spirit is there.
Yeah, well, at least you see, like, there were moments where we could have got back in the game and there's something to cling on to where you're like, if we just didn't make those mistakes, we could have got back in the game. And there's always, like, that fight. Or there's a question mark in my head is like, for especially over the last 10 games or so, it's like, what is the real Tottenham under Conte? Is it the one that keeps going down early and keeps having sloppy starts, or is it the one that shows good character, fights back in the second half, that usually creates a lot of chances, usually pens the opposition back and has a good ending to the game, and then usually, you know, has good fitness? But yesterday was you know, after yesterday, and you're thinking to some of the other games that we've lost, like, you know, Man United away, where it was like some really shocking performances and really done tactically. Like, you do start to think maybe Tottenham under Conte at the moment is more the one that is getting tactically outdone right now by teams and going behind very early. And it does worry me a bit when you hear players like Kulusevski and some other players like Kane as well saying how, you know, obviously we don't want to start this way, and if we knew why we were doing it, or, you know, we could change it. But at the moment, it's about, you know, just going back on the training ground and trying harder and figuring out why that keeps happening. But the fact that they seem to be at a loss as to why we are starting games in that way is worrying. But yesterday it was a bit different. First half was a game I would say we were in control of.
Without creating too much.
Yeah. We didn't create too many clear-cut opportunities. Neither did Villa. I think we had more of the ball than Aston Villa. We were playing the majority of the game in their half. Obviously, there was maybe a couple of openings. Longley played a really good through ball to Perisic, rounded the keeper, and obviously his cross went to Kane and he headed off the line. We had some set pieces which we didn't really make the most of. Son had a free kick on the left-hand side which went straight to the keeper's hands. It was actually amazing. I was reading today, Kane had to wait until the 20th minute to have his first
19th,
touch.
yeah. It was crazy.
How mad is that?
Crazy, I know.
Mad, that's unheard of, to be so uninvolved in the game. 20th minute, that's pretty insane. But it was a game where we had Villa at arm's length. They didn't really look like they were going to hurt us. And if anyone was going to score, I guess it looked like Tottenham, but it wasn't really like anyone looked like scoring in that first half, to be honest. And then second half, you expect Tottenham to come out firing. We looked to force the issue, you know, the first few minutes, but out of nothing, a long-range shot from Douglas Luiz, really bad spillage from Hugo Lloris, like terrible mistake. Should have hung onto the ball or should have parried it out wide. Do not do what he does and parry it straight into the danger zone where Ollie Watkins is waiting. He gets it to Buendia and it's 1-0.
But for such an experienced keeper, just been to the World Cup with France, just got to the World Cup final. 4 years back before that, he just won the World Cup as captain. I mean, how can he keep making these sloppy errors with someone of his experience should know either catch that or palm it to the side. I don't get it.
It's inexcusable for someone of Hugo Lloris's career and his experience, and I completely agree. He will obviously be unhappy with himself. It was really, really poor from Hugo Lloris. That is a mistake which is needless, unnecessary, and it really put us under pressure. Obviously, again, made it the 10th game in a row where we conceded the first goal, and that trend is obviously very, very worrying. And after the goal went in, our confidence definitely seemed to drop. We stopped really looking like getting back in the game or forcing the issue. We had maybe one more chance with Perisic after a good ball from Basuma. Perisic with a nice touch, probably our best chance of the game. He blazed it over the bar from a promising position. Brian Hill was taken off after an hour after some bright spins and looking tricky. In the end, was ineffective. We struggled to get a foothold in the game, and also once we conceded, I think it was on the 66th minute, that was it, they made a change. He took off Leon Bailey, put on Matt Cash and moved to a back three, put Ashley on right centre back, moved Matt Cash to right wing back, and from that point on they really dominated in the midfield, and we were getting caught time and time again. It was evidence when Basuma got booked for because Kamara was getting the wrong side of him. Who, by the way, I was very impressed with Kamara. He played really well. I have to say he looked really good in the middle there. But he got booked, and that was he got booked in the 59th minute. That was like a sign of things to come, because they kept finding space in the middle. All of a sudden, they were started to create chances on the counter attack. And when they scored, it wasn't a surprise, because it was the trend of what was happening in the game. They were counter-attacking. We had no options going forward, and they were just going right through the heart of our midfield at this point, and we were getting outnumbered. And then on the counter-attack, we were getting done. Ollie Watkins was stretching us. As we say, Kamara, Buendia, McGinn were all getting wrong side. And then obviously McGinn ends up connecting with Douglas Luiz, and they get the second goal. And at 2-0.
Really well worked goal, by the way, that second goal from Villa.
Yeah, and they'll get picking up all kinds of pockets of space, which they're having a lot of luck. They did really well finding those spaces after that tactical switch. And the disappointing thing is they made a switch and we had no answer to it. Our answer was bring on Emerson Royale at right wing back, which, by the way, got some reaction from the crowd when that happened, some boos. Bring on Ryan Sessegnon at left back and left wing back, and put Perisic closer up. And I thought Perisic became even more ineffective once he moved further forward, in my opinion.
He moved over to the right, and we just didn't see him after he moved over to the right, literally.
Yeah. We brought Jed Spence on for 2 minutes to play right winger. We brought Ollie Skip on in centre mid. There was no options to change the game. Couldn't change formation.
You're looking at the bench yesterday. We had, I think it was 5 or 6 defenders and wing backs, and 2 defensive midfielders on the bench yesterday. And it's just like, how many times are we going to go into a season? How many times are we going to look at the bench? How many times are we going to say this thing constantly? No options from the bench. The squad isn't there. The squad isn't good enough. 4 years ago, I mean, look, we'll get into all of this in a bit, but it's just not good enough, the state of the squad. It's not good enough, the options that we have on the bench to change games. You can't go into every single game using the same system, the same personnel, the same tactics. When it's not working, we have nothing to change it to. Nothing.
And that's the problem. Obviously, the counter argument would say, well, we had Kulusevski out, we had Richarlison out. If they're both fit, then we would have options on the bench to change it. But even then, I mean, we would have one option, but you can't keep relying on everyone staying fit all the time. You need to have a deep squad, and we just don't have that. It's just very, very thin at the moment. And
that was why it was all right. And that's why it was right second part of last season, by the way, why we look so good. 1 game a week, very lucky with no injuries. And now the injuries are starting to mount up, and we've got Champions League football, we've got the Cups as well, and all that kind of stuff. We're looking completely out on our legs. And when you're comparing us to the other top 6 sides, we are miles away. We are literally miles away.
And at the moment as well, it doesn't help that our second best attacker, or the best attacker last season, Son, and just can't get on the score sheet at the moment. He's looking lost to confidence.
Yeah.
He his touch is looking off it. He had that moment in the first half. He loses the ball inside his own half. He runs back and puts a tackle in, and then immediately takes off his mask and throws it to the side. And you're thinking, all right, maybe Sonny is getting rid of the shackles. Maybe I hope this can be a turning point into just taking off a mask. But unfortunately for him, didn't really help him. It was he continued to frustrate, wasn't able to really find those spaces, and he's been struggling all season, Heung-min Son, and it's worrying. I have to say, it's very, very worrying where he's going to get his form back. We all thought that hat-trick against Leicester would be the turning point, but it hasn't seemed to help him. He hasn't been good. Obviously, Kane, I thought yesterday was really bad, like a really bad off day for him. Albeit he has been scoring goals all season, but yesterday's performance, it seemed lazy. Like it seemed like a lot of the time he would get the ball when either he would be stuck up front and wouldn't touch the ball for 20 minutes, which he didn't, or when he came deep, he was picking up the ball, and it seemed as though he was just playing lazy long passes to no one, always trying to find a Hollywood pass in behind, and more often than not they would be cut out and they would be easily read.
And there was that one moment where he had the perfect opportunity to play Kane in on goal, the perfect opportunity, and he overhits the pass, and that just encapsulated what Son's going through for majority of this season. They weren't linking up together whatsoever. In terms of the back three, they all got booked in the first half, rightly or wrongly. I thought a few of them were a bit harsh, but I don't know whether that hurt them in the second half, like their ability to snuff out some of these counter-attacks. But they were getting run ragged in that second half, our back three, and they weren't really able to help the team going forward. And defensively, in the second half, they were a bit all over the place. The wing-backs, Perisic and Doherty, weren't getting forward in the positions enough, weren't really able to influence the attack, and the midfield kept getting overrun. And when we did get the ball, we were moving it very slowly, very lethargically, just moving it side to side with no penetration. There were a couple of moments where we played some quick football in and around the penalty area, where a good pass in the final pass would have been some good team goals, but it went against us, and those moments were few and far between. You have to be trying those things 6, 7, 8 times a game, and it seems like we're trying them once or twice, and that's it. But it shows we have it in us to get it on the ground, play some quick football, hurt the opposition. But this team just looks so lost at the moment, so bereft of confidence. And I don't know what it's down to, because you've got good players on the pitch there. You've got Højbjerg and Bissouma in the middle who are good players. Both of them played poorly, in my opinion. I thought Bissouma was probably the better of the two. But Højbjerg, he's like a bull in a china shop sometimes. When he doesn't have a good game, it is really bad, because his passing was just so off yesterday. And every time he got the ball, I felt like we lost it. Bissouma did kind of grow a little bit in the game, but still nowhere near good enough for Bissouma in the middle, in midfield too. Like you say, the wing backs I don't think were good enough, albeit Doherty did make that one amazing challenge to save a goal. The back three, Longley was all right for the most part, but he got completely bullied by Watkins at the end, and that should have been a goal there to make it 3-0. And I just don't know. I just don't know with this team anymore. Kane and Son, completely anonymous yesterday. Bryan Gil, bless his little heart, because the guy just put so much effort into that game yesterday, but he was the smallest man on the pitch by some way. And every time he gets the ball, he just, a little nudge and he goes flying. He goes absolutely flying, and you can't fault his effort, can you? You just cannot fault his effort, but he's just a kid playing a man's game at the moment.
And he gives 100%, but it's like any time he gets anywhere close to someone, he just gets out-muscled the ball, so he needs space. He needs to be further away from the opposition, because he gives the opposition, any defender, an inch, and all of a sudden the ball's lost. And he tried his best, and maybe it's something he just needs game time. He needs a run of games. You remember, this is his first start in a Premier League game yesterday, and was taken off after an hour. But yeah, he tried his best, but it was ineffective. That's reality.
The only positive that you can take away from that game yesterday was the return of Cuti Romero. Pretty much. Like, what else can you tell me that was good on that pitch yesterday? Romero was brilliant throughout, especially in the first half, in my opinion. And I'll tell you what, the one player that did impress me was Pape Matar when he came on. I thought he looked good. Some flashes of some nice passing. He kept the ball moving. He was the one that as well that was looking a bit positive when coming on off the bench yesterday. But apart from those two, there was just nothing on that pitch to tell me that we could go and win at Palace next week.
Yeah, it was... It's hard to pick any positive, especially after that kind of display where the whole team seemed to be off it. It's, as Ali Gold, I was just listening to me, said, we just looked hungover. Like it was as if we'd had like a late night last night, and it was New Year's Eve, but as if we'd been up all night partying or drinking and then trying to play a Premier League game at 2:00. And Villa just looked so much sharper than us, even though in the first half they didn't seem too much of a threat. They were still looking sharper and more energetic than us throughout the game, and they were running beyond us. Like as like early in the game, there's a one-on-one sprint between Son and Young's out sprinting him. Like it was just completely a very bad day at the office, and it led to a lot of very very big questions, which we'll get into shortly. But in terms of where this leaves us in the league, not great. 5th in the league at the moment, above Liverpool only because they have a game in hand. We're 2 points ahead of them.
They can go above us tonight, by the way.
They'll probably go above us with a win tonight away at Brentford. If they, look, there's no guarantees they'll win, but it's going to be, look, if they do win, they go above us tonight. Top 4. Still in the race, but it's looking further and further away with each performance.
It is, but at this stage last season as well, you would have said top 4 was looking very bleak as well. And then we made those signings in January, and it really pushed us on to get that top 4. Yeah,
the difference is now a lot of teams have their act together. The last season, United were nowhere under Ragnick. Arsenal were good under Arteta, but not as good as they are this season. Newcastle were never going to get top 4 last season.
It's true, but you had Liverpool there, you had Chelsea there as well.
Liverpool, and they finished in the top 4, and now they're outside. That's even more worrying, in my opinion, because you think Liverpool and Chelsea are out now outside the top 4, and they're going to make a good go of it. You see what money Chelsea is spending right now. I'm sure under Potter, they might not get top 4 this season, but they're going to make a good go of it. We know Liverpool...
I think they will get top 4.
I mean, there's so many teams who
oh, sorry. I was thinking of Newcastle, but Chelsea.
Liverpool got Gakpo now. Their form seems to be returning as well. So it's going to be. I think it's going to be so much harder this year to get top 4 than it was last season. Even top 6 is going to be hard. Let alone top 4. This rate, the way we're going. As much as I believe in Conte and a lot of the players, right now we're stuttering badly. And if you look at the form and just the way we're playing, the trends doesn't look good for us. And although we've put ourselves in a position where we can still fight for top 4, I don't know where the performances are getting worse. That's the worrying thing. You tried to paper over the cracks by getting some wins. We got a last-minute winner against Bournemouth. We got a last-minute winner against Leeds. These wins have kept us just about ticking over. If it wasn't for those late goals, though, where would we be right now?
We would probably be.
You know what I mean? Just how many games without a win if we didn't have those late goals? You know what I mean?
We would probably be level with the Palaces, the Villas, and the Brentfords around there.
Yeah, I mean, that we've won.
You're talking about, in the early 20s would be.
If it wasn't for those goals, we wouldn't have wins in our last 5. Would be really struggling. So those winners, as much as they felt good at the time,
over the cracks.
They definitely did, because we were 2-0 down against Bournemouth. We were 3-2 down with how long to go against Leeds? 10 minutes to go against Leeds. We were 3-2 down. So we've been just about getting results in those games, and now it's come to a head where we're not getting the rub of the green now. The performances are still the same, and it's really coming back to bite us. It's really coming back to bite us at the moment, and it's led to some big existential questions.
It has
within this fan base and this team.
It has, and I think that just to close off the match review, I mean, it was just a case of Spurs not being anywhere near good enough, not having any options to change things, and Villa just wanting it way more than us, and Unai Emery doing a bit of a tactical job on us as well. It's just like Conte as well he's not clear of not having any of the blame. A lot of fans want to blame the hierarchy, and rightly so. But Conte has got to figure out a way how to change things within the game with the options that he does have. And he can't seem to do that at the moment.
Yeah, and he has to take blame for that. I think he definitely has to take blame for our form over the last 10 games. He has to, because we can't. It's not good. The players that he's had at his disposal, yes, they're maybe not good enough for a title challenge and things like that, but it's inexcusable for us to have gone behind. And not only that, we've conceded 2+ goals in the past 7 consecutive games now in the league. That's not good enough. That is not good enough for the team that we have. And I know he showed last season, and it was different circumstances, 1 game a week, but I mean, he has to carry some of the blame in how this team has deteriorated in their levels over the past 10 games, and it's very, very worrying. And some of the football has not been good enough, unfortunately, and he has to carry the can for a lot of that. And the way that Son has become very ineffective, and the fact that these defence are making so many mistakes, he has to take some of the blame. But and there's no getting away from that. Basically, he has to take some of the blame for that. But I think the fans.
Why not? When you see it's not working yesterday in the middle of that second half, go to a 3-5-2. We've seen against teams like Leicester. I can't remember the other game that we did it in. When we move it to 3-5-2 in the middle of the game, stick Kane and Son up top, and get an extra man in midfield so we can pressure and overload them in midfield. You've seen how that works. So why didn't he do that yesterday?
Because he didn't feel like that was the right move.
It's like something has to change, and he didn't change anything that could positively impact that game yesterday.
Because I guess the change would be put Skip in, have a midfield free of Skip
or Sarr, whatever,
or Sarr. But it's not doesn't exactly equal creation though, does it?
Like I get that, but like you saw against that Leicester game, as soon as we brought Bissouma into that midfield, made it a 3-5-2, we started creating chances at will in that game. And maybe it could have been the same case yesterday if we brought in a Sarr or a Skip. Hill was doing absolutely nothing. He was running around a lot. Every time he got on the ball, he was being pushed off it. So take off Hill, bring on an extra midfielder, stick Kane and Son up top, and change it somehow, the tactics, because the tactics were clearly not working.
Yeah, and he didn't. And he has to take the blame for that 100%, because he didn't tactically influence the game like Emre did. Because when he made the change, they were 1-0 up, he made the change, and that was it. They were positively getting forward. They were the ones creating the chances, and we had nothing. Conte felt that we were better off sticking with a 3 up top and trying to get it to those front 3 of Perisic, Kane and Son, and trying to make something happen there. And ultimately it didn't work, and we ultimately got tactically outdone. So doesn't mean it doesn't mean that tactically Conte's always like that, but on this game he got it wrong. And I mean, we say got it wrong, we don't know if we would have got back in the game anyway. I feel the midfield 3, that 3-5-2 is more of a formation for when you're leading rather than chasing, and that's usually been the case. When we have changed it positively, we usually have the lead, and then it's a better counter-attacking system in my opinion. And so that's why I think he probably didn't change it. But at the end of the day, he didn't change it, and nothing changed. So he's got to take the blame.
Yeah. Exactly. And you look, there's no one in this situation. There's nobody in this situation that's involved. The players, the owners, and the manager that walks away from this blameless. Everyone needs to take the blame here. But we all know where the number one blame lies, and let's get into that. But that is our match review for the 2-0 loss against Aston Villa at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. But now let's talk about the next headline we've got for you, and it's, what is the plan at Tottenham right now? Because we've seen since Mauricio Pochettino, when we had Pochettino, it seemed like there was a clear plan in place from the beginning of Poch, not right up until the end, but up until it all started going wrong. We had a plan. We had a plan of a project manager, young players in, and building something for the future. We had a clear vision in place. Mauricio Pochettino called for that rebuild. He got sacked. They bring in Jose Mourinho to apparently win now without backing him. That's no plan in place there. Sacked him 4 days before a cup final. Waited 70 days or something to bring in Nuno.
To bring in Nuno,
Yeah, to bring in Nuno. Nuno comes in. He's gone within a couple of months. And then they bring in Conte straight away. Conte is notoriously a win-now manager. But what we're hearing from the club is that we want young players to come in. We want the same vision as we had under Mauricio Pochettino, but we want to use that for Antonio Conte. Antonio Conte's plans and methods are to win now. Bring in players that are ready to come into the team right now, not like Jed Spence, but like a Richarlison, like a Perisic. Fair enough, they brought in those players. But his philosophy is to come in, get the players he needs and win now. So do the club actually have a plan? Because the noise coming out from the club saying we want a project, we want a project manager, we want a project players to come in, young players, not to spend too much on them in terms of wages, in terms of transfer fees, and build something. But Conte wants to bring in players that are ready-made to come in now and to win, go for a title challenge this season, next season, whenever it may be. So what is the actual plan at Tottenham right now?
I honestly have no idea. I don't know. I don't know if there's, as we've been hearing, you know, apparently there's a split in the board whether what they want. Do they want to back Conte? Do they want to bring someone else? Are they fearful of the backlash of the fans, and that's why maybe they're sticking with Conte until it becomes untenable? Are they really believing they're giving Conte the right tools to try and give a title challenge? And do they believe maybe Conte's when with his messages recently is he's spitting the toys out of the pram? The plan at Tottenham right now is muddled, and we're seeing that right now on the pitch. We're seeing that lack of clarity play out. I don't think there is there's a harmony between the board and the management where they're both on the same page, clearly.
There's not even harmony within the board, never mind with the board and the management.
So I don't know what at the moment. Conte doesn't want to sign because he wants assurances he'll be backed. Tottenham don't want to back Conte because they want assurances he's going to sign. And it's leading to this cycle where it's like a game of chicken where probably everyone's going to lose. And at the moment, I don't see a clear plan. I don't see foresight. I see a muddled strategy where we're just jumping from one crisis to the next, and basically what happens is we stave off crisis with a new manager where his methods come in, and then it's okay for a while until it starts to go bad, and then we bid him off for another thing. And I feel like with the whole Pochettino, yeah, there was a plan, but I kind of feel like we fell into that plan because
we did fall into that plan.
When we hired Pochettino, I don't think the board were like, okay, he's going to bring through Kane and he's going to bring through all these players. You know what I mean?
Well, let's be honest.
Like
yeah, I get that. But when we brought in Pochettino, he wasn't our first choice. Our first choice, if you remember, was Louis van Gaal. Imagine we got Louis van Gaal. Is he a project manager? Is he going to be the manager for the next 5 years and do what Pochettino did? No, the board got completely lucky with Pochettino. But when Pochettino came in, there was a plan. It seemed as though there was a plan in place after he came in, and he was the one that maybe came up with that plan and
that's what I'm saying. It seemed as
made the plan to fruition.
Exactly. I'm saying it seemed as though the Tottenham fell into the plan with Pochettino. Pochettino seemed to bring on what's his name? Bring on Kane. Like we had no idea how good Kane was going to be.
Sherwood knew.
Like we started that season with Adebayor and Soldado as our strikers. We started that season with Yunus Kabul as our centre back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We didn't start the season. Dembele was going nowhere. Like Pochettino came and he fixed all these issues. He trained up these young players, got them playing in this really high pressing system, which suffocated opposition players. It was young, it was vibrant, very reminiscent of what we're seeing right now up the road. And we had that plan. It worked so well. But the difference between what we did then and what Arsenal are doing now is every season now Arsenal are fully backing Arteta. They're giving him money to spend. They're giving him not just like Llorentes and these players. They're giving him Gabriel Jesus, Zinchenko. They're giving him 40-50 million on per player to go and actually improve the team. Whereas
they're basically
we were
doing it right. Basically, they're doing it right.
We were asking Pochettino to always turn water into wine and continue doing that. And when And when basically he can no longer keep turning water into wine, and he actually need proper investment again, we decided no. The problem was to sack him and try and get a manager who can get more out of the squad now, rather than just keep Pochettino and ride out the storm and keep backing him, and so he can reinvigorate the squad with new players. Because he was at Tottenham for 5 years, Rem. That's a long time in current modern day football. And so I feel like ever since we sacked Pochettino, we've been just going from manager to manager, not knowing really what we're doing, kind of pissing in the wind, I feel.
Manager to manager, philosophy to philosophy. It's just a complete mess.
We've been pissing in the wind. We don't know what we're doing.
Yeah.
When
have we ever known what we're doing? Let's be honest.
That's the thing. I feel like we did under Poch. We had a clear plan, and they didn't realise what a good thing they had. They just let it go like they did. And people say, "Oh, it's easy, hindsight 2020." I realised the final days of Pochettino were not good, and it's similar to what we're seeing, now, or under maybe some days under Mourinho. The final days of Poch, the football was bad. We were getting outrun, but that wasn't totally his fault. You had to give him a chance to rectify. You got to remember, right? Pochettino got top 4 in 4 consecutive seasons. He got fifth, third, second, third, fourth, right? And then we started the season badly. So he didn't even get a chance to finish that season. He got sacked after 12 games of that season.
And we saw him have bad starts before when we,
So who knows what would have happened if he would have stayed till the end of the season? Maybe we could have turned it around second half of the season and with some right investment.
To be honest, Poch looked like he had done with the project, because he got no support from the board whatsoever, and he seemed like a dead man. You know what I mean? He didn't seem into the project anymore.
Right, but whose fault is that?
We know whose fault that.
Exactly.
That's the hierarchy's fault.
But I'm saying,
and it's the same thing under every single manager. How many managers are going to tell Daniel Levy the same thing? It goes the same way every single time. It took 5 years to do it under Poch, and then it went to Jose Mourinho. It took 18 months to crumble. Nuno, it took a few months to crumble, and now Conte, it's taken a year to crumble.
Well, it hasn't crumbled just yet, but it's starting to, definitely.
Yeah, it's the same signs. It's the same signs as we've seen under every other manager.
Yeah, and it's hard to get away from that fact right now. Things are definitely seem to be going wrong on the pitch. There's no doubt about it. But I don't think this board seem to know what they're doing when it comes to having a vision and implementing it. When they appointed Conte back in November, right? He stabilised the club. He somehow got that squad to top 4, even though it was, maybe not as difficult as this year to get top 4. He still did a miraculous job, in my opinion, to drag that squad to top 4. Good, smart investment, used it well, had a really good late run in the season, and we snatched that 4th place, which is the dream for this board. But they didn't rectified the main issues in the squad in the summer. They did some good signings, but they didn't rectify exactly what we needed. And now we're in a situation where Conte needs major investment to make his system work, and we're questioning whether we're going to give it to him. So why are we questioning whether we're going to give it to him? Do we not believe in him? I know we're worried that he's not going to stick around, but you appointed him, and either you completely have full confidence in your manager that you appointed, or you're always going to be on hiding to nothing.
But it's the same thing with every single manager. It's not about whether they believe in Conte, whether they believe in Jose Mourinho, whether they believe in Mauricio Pochettino. I mean, if Poch showed if any manager shows what they do at a club like Mauricio did at Spurs and still doesn't get the backing, then who's going to get the backing? You know what I mean? They bring in Jose Mourinho, who obviously needs backing under a failed Mauricio Pochettino after that project went dead. Every single manager has need backing in the same areas that Conte does right now, and they haven't given it to him. The defence, since Toby and Jan have gone off the ball, we haven't had a proper defence. Since Kyle Walker and Trippier left the club, we haven't had a proper right back. You know what I mean? It's the same issues every time. Since Danny Rose has left, have we had a competent left back to come into this squad? Since Dembele have we had a competent midfield? I mean, it's the same problems over and over again with every single manager. And at what point are the hierarchy going to take culpability for this? Are they going to keep sacking managers and keep going for a manager bounce and then ultimately goes bad until they start backing a manager? When are they going to put their money in their pocket? And when are they going to sort out the problems in this squad? It's been way too long. These last 4 years or 3 years, however it's been since Maurizio has left the club, has been a complete waste of time. Every manager has needed the backing and none of them have got it.
On the flip side, if you're playing devil's advocate, I've seen on Twitter, people arguing, whatever you want to say on the hierarchy and their investment and or lack of investment. You look at the team that was out yesterday. You had Romero, a back three of Romero, Longley, Davis. You had a midfield that had Perisic, Højbjerg, Basuma, Doherty. You had obviously the front three of Hill, Kane and Son. Should that team be putting in a better performance than we saw yesterday? Is that team capable of more than what we saw yesterday? Should they be playing better football? Is it and should is this team not massive? Is this team not underperforming? If it is underperforming, why is that the board's fault that this team is underperforming, or is this where the squad is at in terms of how they can perform? And if it is underperforming, is that not on Conte's head?
Look, like I said before in the match review, there's no one that walks away from this problem without blame. Conte takes the blame, the players take the blame, but ultimately the number one blame does lie with the hierarchy for not giving the manager the tools that he needs consistently, time and time again. Yes, we had a team on the pitch yesterday that could have done better, that could have played better, that could have got the result. But ultimately, it always is going to go the same way if you don't keep investing and keep refreshing the squad. And that's just the facts of the matter. You have to keep moving forward. Otherwise, you're ultimately going to move backwards. And that's what you're seeing under every single manager. Yes, he can get maybe a new manager bounce when we're playing one game a week as well and no European football to contend with. He can get us playing good football. But when you're asking him to play 2 games a week, when you're asking him to play Champions League football and Premier League football, and on top of that with the injuries that we've got already, then unfortunately you're going to see these results, you're going to see these performances, and you're going to see what you're seeing right now, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's the reality. Well, and that's the thing at the moment with this uncomfortable relationship. It seems that the management and the board level have put themselves in, and they've had to surely had no foresight whatsoever to have not seen this coming. When they appointed Conte back in November, and if they really didn't want to back him, they should have just gone their separate ways in the summer with Champions League and rebuilt with a different manager, maybe appointed Poch then. But right now, it seems as though they're not sure what to do. There seems to be a lot of uncertainty, and obviously that's filtering through to the fans. That was starting to show yesterday with Daniel Levy get out of our club the chance from the fans in the stands yesterday. And the more these performances continue, I think he's the one who's going to take the brunt of the criticism from the fans.
Rightly so.
And I agree with it, honestly, because I'm sick and tired of these problems. Just it's like Groundhog Day every time. It keeps happening, and they're not willing to. There's no manager, it seems, they're willing to really commit to. It's like they were happy to go along with Poch as long as he was getting them top 4. But like, let's be honest, the investment he really had was so minimal. Like, apart from obviously his final season where he got Ndombele and Lo Celso, and then they sacked him a few months later. Like, in fact, did he even get a chance to play them that much? Probably not, because I think they were injured early on.
Well, Ndombele scored in his debut, didn't he? But look, Poch was sacked within 3 months of that season.
Right, so he barely got a chance to play them. What was the investment he really had during his time? Like really minimal investment during his 5 years, and he was like, just as I said, he was doing so well with the little money he was given, and when that kind of stopped happening, the board turned on him, then didn't back him, and it's like a perennial problem with this board.
He made 27 signings at Tottenham Pochettino. He had Heung-min Son, Toby Alderweireld, Dele Alli, Eric Dyer, Kieran Trippier, Ben Davis, Lucas Moura, Moussa Sissoko, Victor Wanyama, Fernando Llorente, Ryan Sessegnon, Kevin Wimmer, Paulo Gazzaniga, Sanchez, Foyth, Vorm, Paul Lopez, DeAndre Yedlin, Ndombele, Aurier, Jack Clark, Nkudu, Fazio, Vincent Janssen, Stambouli, and Clinton and G. So out of all of them, the only real two players that made an impact on our team was Son and Alderweireld. That was it.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's like, how are you supposed to make a project with that sort of impact from the boardroom, that sort of impact from the signings? It's like, how? Obviously, you're always going to go one way. Look at Arsenal right now with the same sort of project, the same philosophy. Look at the signings they're making. Every single signing they're making at the moment is pretty much making an impact in their first team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that goes to show the lack of direction and foresight from this football club. And it's a continual problem. It continues to happen. And the worrying thing is it clearly seems to be happening again. It's something we've seen all before. And unless we have an incredible January, we're going to be starting a new project in the summer. And do the fans have patience for yet another project? Because it means probably more years of outside the top four, probably not finishing Champions League, more years without a trophy. And we have to have even more patience to get this squad together to be in a position to fight for big things. Also, not to even mention, if Conte does leave in the summer, where does that leave Harry Kane? Is he going to be running down his contract? Where does that leave people like Son? Is he going to think, look, my time's running out of the top. Do I want to stay? Do I want to leave it at Tottenham? Romero's a World Cup winner. How long before he starts to have his head turned? And
Kulusevski,
he's been playing so well for us. So it puts a lot of things up in the air if Conte leaves, and this team will need a really hard reset with a lot of fresh young players, and not even touching on the fact that if Pochettino, say, does come back, do a 30-year-old Kane and Son even work in that kind of system anymore? It's a big question. It's a big question mark.
Yeah.
And what we do, like if you look at the top teams, very few of them at the moment have an old front line. They maybe have one, like Madrid, for example, had like Benzema, but he's backed by two very quick, fast wingers, like who are relentless at the moment. Like, look at Arsenal, very quick, young front line. Liverpool, they've got Salah, who's 30, but then backed up by some young, vibrant forwards, Nunez and Jota and Diaz, like who are relentless right now. And Tottenham at the moment seem to be but when we try to press high, I think it doesn't help when we have two aging forwards right now who don't have it in them at the moment to be so relentless. And that's an uncomfortable question that we need to deal with as well. And without Conte, if we do try to move to a new project, where does that leave them?
Yeah, it's very true. It's very true. I firmly believe that the future of Harry Kane is very much linked to the future of Antonio Conte. And I firmly believe that Conte is going to walk at the end of the season. So I think you're seeing probably the last 2 years now, max, of Harry Kane. He's five goals away from Jimmy Greaves' record as well. And we all said, or I said, that once he breaks Jimmy Greaves' record and Spurs are still not in a good way, he will look to leave. There's no two ways about it. And I feel like if Poch is going to come back, it is going to be a rip-down job. It is going to be a rip-down job, because if you get rid of Kane and then Son ultimately wants to leave, he's going into his 30s, you need to sign a whole new defence, pretty much, apart from Romero. You need to sign two players that can bring you the goals that Kane and Son bring you, which is pretty much a next to impossible task. It's a project where you probably don't look at top four for the next 2 seasons. And
I find it funny as well when people think about people complaining about Conte and stuff and online and on Twitter and stuff and saying, you can't tell me that if we've got a new manager, we could be playing better football and stuff. But it's like you try and put this. Let's say we brought in Pochettino tomorrow. You put that defense in a high line. You see how they do. You see how we would get absolutely ripped apart if we put Conte put this in a Pochettino system.
And let's be honest, Davis was a backup for Poch. He didn't want to play him consistently. Dyer fell out of favour under Poch as well. He didn't want to use him consistently. So we're still using these same players that fell out of favour 4 or 5 years ago. 4 or 5 years ago. Which is crazy.
Yeah, and then I'm trying to be our main players. So I don't know what the plan is at Tottenham. I honestly don't know. What I think, for me, the best course of action if I was the board, completely back Conte, convince him, do your best to convince him to sign on, and that's the only way of doing that is making sure that he has the tools to compete. Sign the players that are right for his system, and that's the best way to move forward right now.
And they talk about
it's going to cost them more money if they go for a new project.
Yeah, it will do. And they're talking about the philosophy of the club is to buy young players and bring them through, and so we have a longevity and all this kind of stuff. If that is the case, then why did you come out and say we want to win now under Jose Mourinho? Why did you bring in Antonio Conte through the door?
What did he say in All or Nothing? I'm a Spurs fan. It's now time for us to win trophies. That's what he said in All or Nothing. So all of a sudden, we want a new project.
Every year they want to change their philosophy. They are confused in the boardroom.
I tell you why. It's because they look at Arsenal right now. They're looking, oh, look, they've got Saka, they've got Martinelli, they've got Odegaard, they've got, they've got Saliba, they've got Gabriel. They're thinking, oh, those guys didn't cost Arsenal so much. Why can't we do that? Well, let's split up. We don't need to spend so much money.
They did do that, but then they didn't kick on. They didn't.
Exactly.
Arsenal still spent 400 million in the last 3 or 4 years, whatever it may be. They backed Arteta to the maximum that they could. You can't say that they did that for Spurs under any manager.
And the funny thing is, let's say we bring in Pochettino and he has a first season like Arteta did. Will this board have the patience to stick with him? Maybe, probably not. They probably wouldn't. What you think the board, if we're finishing 8th, are going to stick with Poch?
No chance.
No chance. No chance. And you have to commend Arsenal for sticking with Arteta through those tough times. Because I think honestly, any top 6 manager would have sacked Arteta under those conditions. Let's be honest. Finishing 8th like that, and after the back of a 8th before that, any top 6 manager is sacking him.
And then missing out top 4 as well to us last game of the season.
And they stuck with him. They stuck with the project. They had the foresight to see that they were onto a good thing and they were sticking with their philosophy. And now they're reaping the rewards. But this management that we're under now will never do that. We've shown it time and time again. The first sign of trouble and the manager goes. And they have no foresight to stick with a plan. And it's all well and good. You can say, oh, they did it under Poch, but it was never going wrong under Poch. There was never any cracks in up until they sacked him, pretty much. Let's be honest, when they sacked him, it was pretty much the first sign of trouble.
Yeah, I mean, the year that we got to Champions League final, we got top 4, but we didn't have the greatest season in the league.
But they were never going to sack him for finishing top 4, were they?
No, it's true. Yeah,
never going to sack him finishing top 4. So literally, the first sign of maybe of the first crack in the armour where it looked like we might not finish top 4, sacked.
Gone. Yeah, it's true.
That's the reality.
It's true.
Pretty much same with Mourinho. I mean, I know he didn't finish top 4 first season, but second season, as soon as it looked like we weren't going to finish top 4, gone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It was like they sacked him because he wanted to rest players in the league when we still had a chance of top 4, when we literally had a cup final in 4 days' time. That just shows you. That just shows you where the attitude is in the boardroom. They don't care about bringing in I mean, maybe they do care about bringing in trophies, but it's all secondary. It's all secondary to how much money they can make. And that's what it comes down to. Money, money, money. And that's bringing in money, not spending money. And ultimately, that is always what it's going to come down to under this hierarchy. Winning trophies and what's on that pitch is all secondary to them. As long as they can finish in that top 4 every season, they don't care about anything else. They don't care about anything else.
And that's the predicament we find ourselves in at the moment. I don't know where this all leads. I mean, logically, it leads to a disaster where Conte goes and we're probably on the end of a start of another project in the end of the season, which I guess in the best case scenario is probably a Pochettino, but who knows? Really, he might have found a job by then. We don't really know. A lot can happen in 6 months if we don't.
I guarantee you now, Levy or someone is on the phone to Poch being like, all right, this is all going to go horribly wrong. He's probably going to go in the summer. You know, do you want the job? And I think Poch is desperate to come back. I don't know why, but I think he's desperate to come back.
But how mad is it in consider to think about how much time has gone. In the end of next season, it will be 10 years since we appointed Pochettino.
Yeah, it's nuts. And Poch is pretty much going to be walking into the same club that he left. No trophies, struggling to make the top four, a depressed fan base, ownership still not backing the manager. And how long have we been in the stadium now?
We've been
3
there
years?
since 2019.
Since Poch left.
Yeah.
Poch put us into this stadium, right? We've been in this stadium. They told us this stadium is going to be a game changer for us. We were going to compete for the top, compete with the best clubs. Trophies are going to start coming. We're going to start backing every manager. It's a joke. It's a joke. Like, how are they telling us now that we don't have any money to spend? How are they telling us that? Like, where? Like, how? How? What are the excuses that they can tell us that they've got no money? Oh, the pandemic. The pandemic was ages ago now. We've moved into the stadium. We're getting all the revenues. We are surpassing Arsenal in terms of the amount of revenue we're bringing into this club. We're having Guns N' Roses, Anthony Joshua, Lady Gaga performing at our stadium. We've got Champions League football. They told us if we don't make Champions League football, there's no chance we can sign anyone. And now we are in a January where there's still the same holes in the squad that we had 4 years ago, and they're telling us, what did Paul O'Keefe say the other day? 30 million. We've got 30 million to spend plus player sales. When Arsenal, who haven't been in the Champions League for 5-6 years now?
Since 2017.
Since 2017.
Coming up to 6 years.
They haven't been in the Champions League all this time, and they're spending 400 million to back Arteta. And we're surpassing them on revenue brought into this club. The whole thing is a shambles. It's a complete shambles. And this hierarchy are the ones, like, you can blame Conte all you want. You can blame the players that we have on that pitch all you want. But it is always going to go back to them. And until they start backing a manager, it's always going to go back to them. And that's just the facts of the matter. And unless they take culpability of what they are doing, unless they come out and tell us what the plan is, what they have in mind, then, like, even if they do come out and tell us a plan and what they have in mind, like Daniel Levy has done in the past, it's all bollocks.
Look, and it's clearly subject to change within a month or two. Well, let's be honest. What did he say? He was going to bring back the Spurs DNA, all good football, and then he brings Saturday's points Nuno. So they had no idea what they were doing. He was just throwing things out there that sounds nice. That was just PR. It's all rubbish.
Anything to calm down the fan base a little bit. Basically. Anything to save a little bit of face. That's all it is. And it's just getting too much now. I mean, like, I think we were both in agreement with this, that when we brought in Conte, we would chill out with the hierarchy a bit. We wouldn't say Enoch out, Levy out, all this kind of stuff. Let's see how it goes. But unfortunately, it's going all in the same way. This is their last chance, this January, to put the money on the table and say, Conte, here are the players that you want. Here's your right wing back. Here's your centre backs. Here's your creative midfielder. Not one creative. We've got Kulusevski and Harry Kane, the only creative players in this whole squad. Harry Kane's been asked to play as a forward, not dropping deep too much anymore. So that, alleviates a creative player. And Kulusevski's injured at the moment. So that's why against Villa, we had no sort of creativity whatsoever on that pitch. Harry Kane, it took 20 minutes for him to get a touch on the ball because he was going up front and not dropping deep into the midfield. There is no creativity. And how the hell are you supposed to move forward as a football club when you've got these gaping holes that you refuse to fix? Refuse to fix. No, all right, we'll just give Dyer a new contract. We don't need a new centre-back. Just stick Ben Davis there, left-back. Conte, you've made him a good player. Why do you need to replace him? We've got Christian Romero. We've got Stopback and Clement Longley. What more do you want? While Chelsea are out there signing players like there's no tomorrow. You really think we're not going to fall further and further behind? Of course we are. And there is only one person to blame. Well, a group of people to blame, and that is our board. For not having you don't even need the foresight. All you need to do is see what's happening on that pitch, see what the fans are saying, see what every other club in the Premier League are saying, see what every other club in the Premier League are doing. It's a joke. It's an absolute joke. And
you think about the top 6 team, like if Chelsea had 2 attackers out, they could still field a very good front three. Like Chelsea, even United, if they had 2 forward players out, they could still put in a very good front three. Man City the same, but one for us, you take out any 2 players, make them. If you take out any two players out of our forward line, and we're struggling all of a sudden, any of them, because the next striker on the list is Hill, and that just goes comparing our lack of depth to the rest of the top six, and that is exactly where we are at the moment.
Forget depth though. Look at player for player starting 11s, for instance, in the against the top six. Looking at the defence, none of our right wing backs get into any team in the top six. Probably none of our left backs get into any team in the top six. And apart from Cuti Romero and our goalkeeper, no, not even. Lloris probably doesn't even get into any teams in the top six. Davis, Dyer, Longley don't get, and Davinson Sanchez don't get into any teams in the top six. Mm-hmm. Romero, out of that whole back line, is the only one that can probably get into a team in the top six. The only one.
That's reality. And and people asking why we're so defensive. It's like we're trying our hardest to protect this back line right now. It's just, I'm at a loss as to where we're headed, because at the beginning of the season, in the summer, you're thinking, look, Conte's here. We'll look, hopefully after 6 weeks of the window, we look like we're going to give him money to spend. We're going to back him. We're going to go in his direction. But
a window like we've never seen before, unprecedented.
I think it all started to go wrong in the last 6 weeks of that window. That's where it all started to go wrong. I think people, when we didn't sign anyone, there were a lot of frustrated fans, so people were willing to kind of look over it a bit just because we did have a good first 6 weeks. But I think we should have realised at that point that we actually didn't invest. At the beginning of the window, we wanted a right wing back to come into the team and a centre back. We didn't. We
got a right wing back.
Yeah,
it's not one a manager can use.
We didn't invest heavily in either of those positions. Basically.
And I don't get it, right? Because if Conte's telling the board that he needs a right wing back, that he did, do they not talk? Does Conte not talk to Paratici? Does he not talk to Levy, being like, all right, we're going to get you this Jed Spence if you need a right wing back so much? Mm-hmm. Do they not talk and Conte being like, no, I don't want to use him? I don't understand it. How can you have discussions about bringing players in the summer and you end up with Jed Spence, a player that the manager doesn't want to use? How does that make sense?
And then they're giving it the big talk about a left centre back. We're going to spend 50 million Romero money, they said, on a left centre back, and we end up with Longley on loan. And I don't think Longley's a terrible player, but when you're talking about a major upgrade, he just isn't that. Yeah. He's probably on a similar level to Davis at the moment. Anyway,
we went from Bastoni to Longley on loan,
a player who's struggling for form at Barcelona, those are the two major holes, and then we didn't. And then we were talking about, okay, with Spurs looking at other forward, we end up looking at Dan James on loan on deadline day. You know what I mean? What the hell is that about? Yeah. Yes, we got Richarlison of 60 million, fine, and that's good, but that's just a starting point. That's not an ending point. Yeah. That's something to build on. It's not like, okay, we got Richarlison, that's it.
It feels like, because Richarlison, apart from Spence, was the last signing, right? It felt like they were like, all right, we signed Richarlison for 60 million. What more do you want?
Yeah.
So what more do you want? We're signing Richarlison for 60 million, a player that doesn't get into the first team anyway.
I'm at a loss of where we're headed. That's the problem at the moment.
And this January is last chance saloon, literally, to keep some, because we can still turn this around. We really can still turn this around if we listen to Antonio and his needs and what he needs and bring in those players that he needs, not players that he needs in a position like Jed Spence just to bring him in and fill a hole. No, you need to listen to exactly what he needs. If you want to change the philosophy after he comes to the club, then you're not going to go anywhere at this. You're not going to go anywhere. This club is not going to go anywhere. And if you think you're going to get, he's just going to wave a wand and we're going to finish in the top 4 this year and you get your Champions League revenue money, you better think again, because that ain't going to happen this season.
He can't repeat what he did last season without investment. He can't do it. And it's not even that he needs that much. He needs 2 or 3 players, good quality players, and we're in a good position.
Yeah.
But right now we're just very short, and to be honest, that's all you need when you got opposition teams investing heavily, improving all the time, getting their act together. You don't need to be short that much to make a big difference, but we are, and that's the reality. And look, all eyes on the board this January, 100%.
Absolutely.
And I think it's the frustration is the messages we're hearing, what we're hearing through the grapevine about not a lot of money to spend, and what kind of players we're looking at in January and looking to invest in. That's the problem we're hearing. And also the time it's obviously going to take compared to other teams why I don't understand why we've gone into January and we're not ahead of the game. Why are we not already after targets and have people lined up like other teams seem to right now? We have had Conte now for over a year. We should be all on the same page about where we're heading, what we're needing, what we're going for, and yet it just seems as though we don't know what we're doing. We're not sure if we're backing him or not. We're not sure what kind of player we're going for. We're not 100% convinced whether to invest the money or not, and that's unacceptable. That's unacceptable.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. So the question is what is the plan at Tottenham?
And your guess is as good as mine.
And nobody bloody knows what the plan is at Tottenham.
Let us know in the comments what is the plan at Tottenham. I want to know.
Yeah, I'd love to know. And let us know who you think the most culpable people are at the club. Is it the hierarchy like we think, or do you think Antonio Conte should take more of the brunt of this? But let us know in the comment section below. Let's get through a few super chats and then we'll start taking your calls. SLG says, do you think Kane and Son want to leave the club now? I mean, I don't know. I mean, look, if Conte walks in the summer, I don't see why Kane would stick around.
Look, I don't know if they want to leave the club now, but what I would say is when you're at the level Kane and Son are, which is world-class players, to be at a club like Tottenham for nearly coming up to 10 years, right, not win a single trophy, and then be told potentially if Conte leaves that you're going to have to start a new project. That has to be a very tough pill to swallow and keep motivated in terms of knowing that it's quite likely that even though you've been at the top of the game for a long time and you've committed so many years to this club, and you've just been there for so long, and you haven't won anything, it's got to be tough to keep motivated to be for another project when you knowing that realistically you're probably not going to be at the top for more than, realistically more than 3 or 4 years. Even that's if you're lucky and doing well. That must be hard. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Conte project falls through, but they do look to leave because it must be tough to start another project after that.
Yeah, completely agree. Dan THFC with a members upgrade. Welcome to Gold, Dan. Welcome back.
Go on.
Brian Churnit, my grandpa, says everything depends on who we purchase. We need 2 teams. Absolutely spot on.
Yes, but and that's it. Like, we did all right 1 game a week. Now we're on 2 games a week, and we've got injuries piling up. We are struggling. We
were talking about in the summer, do Spurs have the best front line in the Premier League? You look at Liverpool's front line now. They've got 6 players, 6 top players. You know?
But you look at our first 4, and that is a good 4. Kane, Son, Kulusevski, Richarlison. It's not enough, especially when you've got 2 injuries and you're playing 2 games a week. Then all of a sudden, you go from looking okay, and then it's really, really short all of a sudden. And also, when I talk about Kane and Son, we need to have the ability to rest them and drop them on a regular basis now now they're coming up to 30. We need to, for example, in a perfect world, on Wednesday, 9 hours of them play. We bring 2 players into the front line, and we give them a rest and have them on the bench in case they're needed. But we can't do that. They have to play every minute of every game, and they're too heavily relied upon. That's the reality.
Yeah. Jaden with the super chat says we all need to protest against ENIC. I'm not sure what we need to do. Something needs to be done. Is protesting the answer? I don't know.
I don't know about protesting, but we need to definitely put pressure on the board. Maybe protesting is the way to do that, but we need to pressure them to make sure that we make our feelings known, that we want them to back Conte.
Yeah.
But the question is, we need to be united in that, because I do see a lot of split in the fans saying, Conte's to blame and the football's not good enough. And I get the feeling at the moment, I'm feeling anyway, is that the Conte, I'm not saying Conte out, but the pressure on Conte is building from more than it was. Maybe at the end of last season for sure, there was no pressure. He was doing great. The pressure seems to be building on him this season. And let's be honest, unless we're completely united, as a fan base to say, we want you to back Conte. Why would they?
But why is the pressure building on Conte? I get Conte is not completely blameless in this situation, but we turned on Poch, we turned on Jose, we turned on Nuno, and now we're going to turn on Conte as well. Like, when is this fan base going to turn on the hierarchy instead of a small section of it? Why is it always the managers? How can it be the manager's fault every single time?
Don't know. Well, it's not. It's the hierarchy. Look, when it's that going on for that long, the hierarchy have to take responsibility because it's their club. Like, they're the owners. They can't absolve themselves of all blame. They have to take ultimate responsibility, and they got the praise when they opened the stadium and we were doing things quite well to Pochettino. They did get praised, the hierarchy, by a large section of the fan base, and now it's all gone flat, and they've not known what they're doing. I think that ultimately they have to be criticised 100%.
Aravind with the super chat saying, KF, we get murdered by Arsenal. I don't think Conte is getting to the end of the season. Levy will have to act as the pressure mounts on him. I mean, I don't think he'll sack Conte. He knows his contract's up at the end of the season anyway. He'll just walk, won't he? You think it will get so bad that Levy will have to act and sack him? To be fair though, he just knows Pochettino's there just waiting.
That's the thing. Look, to be honest, if we go on a now we have City and Arsenal. If we do go on a losing streak, I'm hopeful that we still have enough to get some results. I'm not saying get wins every game, but I'm hopeful maybe we'll get a win from somewhere in that run. But if we do lose, if we go on a losing streak now, the pressure will be a lot. The pressure will build quite a lot, and maybe Levy could use that as an excuse.
But the thing is, if we look at our run of fixtures that we've got now, we've got Palace away, which we haven't won at the last 3 years. Arsenal at home, which is looking more increasingly difficult as the days go by. Man City away in the same week. Fulham away, and then Man City at home.
So and then Milan coming up
extremely tough run of fixtures now. And if we're struggling to play against the likes of Fulham at home, Bournemouth away, Brentford away, then what chance do we have against these kind of teams?
Yeah, but we lost to Burnley and then beat City. You know what I mean? It doesn't always work out like that. You know what I mean?
I know, but this is just too many hard games in a row.
Yeah, and I'm sure there'll be some losses there, but we need to bag some result from somewhere. You know what I mean? Doesn't mean we're going to lose every game.
I can't tell you a game in that run that we're going to win. But anyway.
Yeah, but Everton just went and drew with City. You know what I mean? It just happens.
Yeah.
We need to somehow get a result. Pull one out the bag.
Super chat here from Jory saying Levy didn't back Poch, Mourinho and Conte, sack Conte and then get a new manager that won't be backed. # what is the point? He also says in another super chat, says, unless you think manager can win without backing, you have to beat Levy out.
Mm-hmm.
Bob Spur, big up Bob in the comments, says, I wish Conte went in the summer. Why? Because leaving after qualifying for 4th and then disclosing the lack of ambition would have hit harder. Interesting. He also has another super chat, says, whereas now, unfortunately, the poor football as he leaves will cloud some of the fan base's view. It's all ENIC. It's always ENIC.
Leanic, he's saying.
Leanic.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Chunky Cheeks with the super chat saying, ugly truth is that fans don't hate it enough to stop buying tickets and kits or watching on telly. We are the club, but we lack resolve to suffer for change. What'd you say to that?
Well, I guess it's true because we know that if people say, stop by if you don't like it, stop buying season tickets, but then someone else is going to buy the season ticket anyway, so it doesn't really affect the club.
Not only someone else is going to buy the season ticket, if you don't go into the club shop, I mean, you're going to have a whole host of people that hate ENIC, hate Levy, don't spend a penny in the shop, don't refuse to go to the shop, but ultimately, after the game against Villa, the club shop was rammed.
Yeah, of course it was.
The club shop was absolutely rammed after that performance and after that win, after that loss. So, I mean, where'd you go? Because you've got a whole section of this fan base that, they say they support Tottenham, but they're not as passionate as me or you or the people listening here or the hardcore section of this fan base. They come, they take their kids, they they like Tottenham when they were growing up, and that's about it. You know what I mean? They don't care enough about what's going on in the background to really make a stand. They'll come, they'll buy their kids a Spurs shirt, and they'll probably forget about the loss once they get home.
And that's fine for them. Well, I'm not going to say they're not real Spurs fans, but if they don't care as much about the team improving and making sure that they stay competitive and enjoy what they're watching and having a team on the pitch that we want to see reach our dreams as fans, and they're not as interested in that, and that's fine, but I don't know what to do about that. Maybe organising a protest is something. I don't know. We need to make our feelings known, though, that you need to make sure that you back this manager, or there's gonna, or that, because that's what the fans want. But we need to be united in that knowledge that the fans want you to back Conte. And right now, I feel like there's a lot of fans who are turning on Conte, and that's gonna that's gonna lead to a split, and that's gonna lead to an excuse for the hierarchy to either not back him or sack him when the opportunity comes, and then they might take it.
Yeah. A super chat here from Christopher Nyland saying, who is worse, the Glazers or ENIC? Could Tuchel replace Conte if he leaves? I mean, I'm just fed up of talking about who can replace Conte if he leaves, because ultimately, if Conte leaves, it's because he hasn't been backed. And what's that to say that the next manager will be backed? So what's the point to talking about that? But in the case of who's worse, the Glazers or ENIC, I don't know.
I don't know too much. Like, I'm not an expert on Glazers, but I've understood they're not great. They take a lot of dividends and all this kind of stuff. But I don't know. I'm sick of talking about ownerships. You know what I mean?
But ultimately you have to talk about it because it keeps coming back to them.
I know, but I'm sick of it. I'm
sick of it as well. Yeah, I know.
I mean, I want to come on and just talk about football and talk about what their skills and goals and tactics and all this kind of stuff, and we're just bogged down by talking about money and ownerships all the time, and just really can't be asked for it all the time. But that's how it is, because he keeps coming to the same thing.
Mm. All right. Well, I think it's time to bring on some guests for you guys to have your say. If you want to come on, the link is in the community section right now. I think I saw my grandpa in there. Is he still there?
I told him to check his connection because it kept disconnecting. He hasn't come back yet, though.
Grandpa, if you're watching, do connect and we'll get you on as soon as possible. How many people we got?
5.
5?
Oh gosh, 6.
6. Has my grandpa just come on?
No.
All right. Let's bring on our first guest, Mr. KPV, or KVP,
Hello.
as it says.
Hello.
How you doing, KPV?
Good, not so good, just not great.
What do you want to talk about today, mate?
Well, another shit performance as always, but first off, I have to say big up Expressions for calling Enoch and Levy out. I have to big him up. He called him out. It was on Henry White's channel yesterday. He called him out. Like, big him up. I have to. Can we all please give him a round of applause, please, everyone?
Sure. Well done, Expressions.
Listen, the boy, like, it's not the first time you've had one of the fans call him out, and he was one of them. Like, it's time to start protesting and make a statement. Enough is enough. Get out of our club. We are a shambles. What are we supposed to do? Nothing. We're shit. Like, don't know what we're supposed to do. Shit game. Like, I don't know why Kulu was injured. Like, he must have suffered an ankle injury or something. We didn't have one single attacking player on the bench.
Kyle, is Conte going to stay?
I don't know. Like, he'll probably walk at the end of the season, but I hope he stays. But I'm not the one to answer that question. You'll have to ask Brian Daigle that question, because he'll
Don't
probably.
worry, we will. Don't worry.
Like, but yeah, not great. We've now lost 3 home games, and those lot have now won 2 times there. They won 3 times in N17. The last time they won there was in 2015. That was under Tim Sherwood. Benteke got the only goal. Then they come to our new stadium a few seasons later, win 2-1, and now they keep a clean sheet. 3 wins in N17 in the league. Like, we beat them there last season under Conte. What, two? No, it was Nuno actually. Take that back. It was Nuno, Højbjerg, and Kane, I believe. But that at least we won the last and we won it there. So Unai Emery's unbeaten against us. Fuck's sake, ex-Guna. We can't seem to beat him. I don't like the guy. I'm sorry. He's unbeaten. Shit. What are we
All right.
supposed to do?
Carl.
Your frustrations, we share your frustrations, Kyle. We do share your frustrations, but we've got a very busy show today, so we're going to have to move on. But thank you, KPV, for coming on, mate, and we'll speak to you soon.
All right, mate. And as always, Levy out.
Big up, KPV, once again. Who do we have next? Something inside so strong. Oh no.
How you doing, Barry?
We need something inside so strong, don't we, boys?
Yeah, we need something
desperately.
inside and outside so strong. I mean, it's just a shambles at the moment, isn't it, Barry?
Yeah, look, the post-match fan show was explosive yesterday. It went on for 2.5 hours.
Wow. Lucky
look,
it wasn't an 8 p.m. kickoff.
Yeah, well, I'm worried because me and Rez are doing the Palace game on Wednesday, so it could be. I might just bring the duvet and we can just go straight into Good Morning Tottenham. But look, just kind of on reflection, I know everyone was angry yesterday. It's kind of been set up. It's kind of been set up how we know what's going to happen. It doesn't really matter if Conte's there or not anymore because he's not going to get backed. He's said what he said. I know Brian's obviously saying he could be gone within 24, 48 hours. I wouldn't be surprised if they're trying to do something over this weekend to try and smooth his way out, whether that's a golden handshake or a handcuff. He's handcuffed. He can't say anything. But Levy's not going to put up with the chance that was going on in the stadium. We, like you said, we're kind of bored of talking about it now, but it's the same thing. But look, I think where we need to show some balance, I do think we need to. It's not all on the board. Yes, we know that we haven't invested. We haven't got the players that Conte wants, or we have got the players, or some of the players that Conte wants. But those players need to take some responsibility. They're getting paid hundreds of thousands of pounds a week, and they're just not showing up. Conte is setting them out to go on the pitch. He looked like he didn't care. He needs to take some responsibility as well. So it's not just, yes, it's a bigger picture, and we have seen the narrative of, Enoch and Levy out, and we've had conversations about trying to be positive and trying for everyone to try and stay together. But I think everyone, from the fans, the players, the tea lady, the medical staff, everyone just needs to kind of have a look in the mirror and look at what they want to try and do and what they want to try and achieve. Because at the moment, they're all on a different page.
Exactly. Barry, what is the plan? Can you tell me what the plan is right now at Tottenham?
Well, there is no plan. That's the easiest point, Sim. There, we don't have unlike Brighton, for example, that have a plan. They have a philosophy. They know how they play. They buy for that philosophy of the club. The players, every team, I'm sure the under-21s, the under-23s, they're all playing at a different way of football, and it should be all the way from the bottom to the top of the club that everyone's on the page. This is how Tottenham play. They play, you sit there and the video before, the 10-minute video before the players come on the pitch and playing with style and playing with passion. And we're not playing with anything.
Why? Whose fault is that? Whose fault is that?
It's the club's fault because no one knows. We have manager after manager that comes in and plays a different way. They either play with a back four or they play with wing backs, and then we're buying for that manager. We're not buying for that club. Look at Look at Arsenal. Look at Liverpool. Look at Man City. They buy players for their philosophy. They have a plan. If anyone leaves, if Klopp leaves, Pep leaves, Arteta leaves, the next person that comes in will come in and they'll play the way that Arsenal want to play, or play the way that Chelsea, Man City want to play the way that Liverpool want to play. And I think, we need to. That's what we don't have. We don't have a plan. The plan. We know what the plan is. Conte will go if it's now or in the summer. Poch will come back. Then Poch won't get backed. Then he'll go. Then we might as well have Ryan Mason there. That's the long and short of it, because he will just do whatever he's told. And that's the sad thing about it. Look, that's what we need. We need a plan, and we don't have a plan. And that plan has to come from, the owners. ENIC and Levy. Look, we know if someone comes in with an offer, then they'll go. But until that point, they'll be here for another 20 plus years, because they're making their money, they're doing what they need to do, and they're protecting their investment. And that's the only plan I can see at the moment. The difference between coming fourth or winning the league is about £10 million. They're not going to invest £200 million to get 10 million, for an extra £10 million. It's not worth it for them. And everything else that's going on, look, from a business point of view, that's their plan. But from a footballing side, there is no plan at the moment. The stadium, we've got the stadium, COVID's over, all the excuses are kind of being removed. And I don't, like with you guys, I'm getting really more and more dejected talking about the same thing and everything else. I just want this club to just, start and have a plan, back the managers, because we've not backed any managers since, forever. Give them what they want, and let's see what we can do. But I don't know, guys. It's just really, just listening to you guys, looking at you guys, seeing how positive, and even me, I'm normally so positive. I just don't know what to do anymore.
I know, it was only a few days ago, Barry, me and you were messaging saying, we need to be unified, we need to be positive, we need to all come together and support the team. I mean, but they're just making it so hard for us to do that. And this hierarchy with the same thing, same problems, manager in, manager out. I mean, they just make it so hard for us to do that. And it's their last chance now. If they can back Conte in this January, then I think we can move forward. But you and me, I know what do you really believe that they're going to do that?
No, look, the narrative has already been set. There will be, Conte will go, Poch will be back. Everyone will be jizzing over Poch because of the way that the football that he played. But guys, let's be real. He was never backed. 18 months without signing anyone. If we go back to Poch, we may as well have stuck with Poch and actually backed him. The amount of money that we spent on Mourinho, Nuno, Conte, all of the compensation and everything else. And look, Poch back then had prime Dele Alli, or actually a Dele Alli that played football and not did everything else that he's doing. Christian Eriksen, Toby Alderweireld, Jan Vertonghen, Moussa Dembele, Victor Wanyama, Trippier, Walker, Rose. I mean, the list goes on, and we haven't got any at the moment. None of these players are playing. Kane and Son just look completely dejected. Hugo Lloris has turned up. I mean, his brother's turned up after the World Cup, because he certainly wasn't playing like that for France. All the fans crying out about Eric Dyer and Emerson Royale. We looked worse without both of them yesterday, and we sit there every week slating both of those players. So, look, we need to back him. But I just know deep down in my heart of hearts, it's not going to happen. And that's the sad thing, because it's going to be, like you say, Ben, another manager. There'll be the divisions. And it's, I don't see where this ends. I mean, sadly, I see the only thing that I can see happening, and I can probably make sure does happen, is, which we don't want to happen, is Arsenal winning the league. And we need to start believing that, because they're getting all the luck at the moment. A deflection to Saka, Odegaard hits it into the ground, it goes into the top corner. Brighton get a goal ruled offside when they're coming back into the game from a stud. everything is, Man City drawing, everything is falling for them at the moment. And like you said, I don't see where even, okay, we can paper over the cracks with Portsmouth, but Palace, Fulham, Arsenal, Man City twice. Then after that, we've got Chelsea, West Ham. I don't see where we're picking up points. It's really depressing.
Arsenal's fortunes are going to change in 2 weeks' time, Barry. That's what's going to happen.
Well, look, I absolutely hope so, because being in that stadium, I mean, obviously we could hear stuff yesterday over the microphones and everything else. If we go 2 or 3-0 down against Arsenal and that happens, it's going to be horrible being in that stadium.
Yeah, it will be. It will be. Barry,
All right, Barry,
thanks for coming on, my friend, and good luck on the watch along on Wednesday night.
Yeah, cheers. Cheers, guys. Come on.
Come on, you Spurs. Let's keep going. Let's go to Alexander. How you doing, Alexander?
Hey guys, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, my friend. How are you?
Very well, thank God. So, I want to try and look at this from a sort of more calm perspective than getting emotional. While I've been waiting, I've looked at on the Transfermarkt website at how much money we've actually spent since Pochettino was manager, and I just wondered if you guys would you know or have a rough idea of how much the club spent since Poch was appointed.
Since he was appointed, not sacked.
Yeah. Sorry.
Probably 400 million, something like that.
Okay, so double it. 850 million euros we spent on players since Pochettino was appointed. That's according to Transfermarkt. So
okay.
I don't know if those figures are...
But that is 9 years.
Alexander,
I agree. It's over 9 years.
How many of those players are competent players, though? How many of them have made an impact?
Yeah. No. So this is where what I want to get to is I think we need to separate out. Obviously, the board have their strategy, they have their strong points, they have their weak points. Nobody is under the illusion that they're spending in the same way that Chelsea or Manchester City are. But I think we need to look at the idea that the club don't back the manager. I think it's not as bad as we think it is. I do think the problem we've had is in recruitment. We've still got, look at the players that we still can't get rid of, that we don't want at the club. We have probably got 11 or 12 players. The ones on loan, like Ndombele, like Reguilon, like what's the other guy, Lo Celso, Winks as well, that we're presumably still paying a fair chunk of their salary. And this is also holding us back because our recruitment for many, many years has just been absolutely atrocious. We had a and this is where I think the problem goes back to, is that we had a plan. You're talking about the club not lacking direction, not having a plan. When we had Poch in his early years, and even before that, our plan, basically since we appointed Frank Arneson, our plan has been to appoint to sign young, up and coming, hungry players. And at some point, and I don't know exactly when, but maybe that year when we didn't sign anybody, we just stopped doing that. The problem is we didn't go from saying, okay, we're going to change our strategy and now we're going to sign established players. We just started padding the squad out with basically rubbish, like players like Sissoko, Sanchez, Aurier. These sort of players they weren't cheap. We're talking players. Sanchez, £42 million. Aurier, 25 million. Sissoko, 30 million. Lucas, he's had half a dozen good games. Lovely guy, don't get me wrong, but could you call him an out and out success? The last player, okay, we spent in the summer just gone. I think we actually had a fairly, on paper, we had a fairly decent transfer window. We bought Romero in on a permanent deal. Nobody's complaining about that. When we signed Bissouma, and if he had more than 1 year left on his deal, we would have spent considerably more on him. We spent 60 million on Richarlison. We bought who else did we buy? We bought
Spence and Perisic.
Spence and Perisic, and we brought Perisic was a free, as was Forster. So I think we need to kind of put everything in perspective. We're all pissed off because the football, let's face it, George Graham's falling asleep watching this rubbish. So that's the problem. That's what we're all pissed off about.
Do you blame Conte then? Does the blame lie on Conte?
I don't think it's just Conte because obviously, you know, as the expression goes, you can't polish a turd. So he has got some players on the books at the club who are basically, they're just not good enough. You know, the likes of Emerson Royal, who, again, he seems like he's spent a lot of his own money trying to making the effort, but, you know, he's only so good. The same with Doherty. He seems like he's got the right attitude, but attitude will only take you so far if you don't have the talent. And that's the problem. We've tried to make up for the recruitment. Some of them, you're always going to have hit and miss. Every club has hit and miss. Look at, you know, people talk about Arsenal. So, you know, they spent, what was it, 72 million quid on Pepe. He's a complete disaster. So every club has their, you know, Man United, Anthony Martial that we were interested in at one point, and they gazumped us and spent 53 million quid on him. He hasn't been a roaring success.
I get that, but Alexander, but since Arteta's joined the club, they've rarely made mistakes on transfers.
No, it's true. I think they've done better since he. But I did see one Arsenal fan posted on Twitter yesterday, and I think the difference in spending between us and Arsenal since Arteta took over is about €2 million. I don't know if I haven't checked that figure out, but it wouldn't surprise me based on the figures I looked at for the last few years. So it's our recruitment. You know, what can we do that we spent 25 million on Brian Hill, and he's turned out
25 million plus Lamella plus 80 grand a week, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. You know, okay, don't get me wrong. I'm not sure Paratici's been in charge for long enough that you can judge his record in terms of recruitment, because he's also had to get rid of a lot of players. He's definitely signed some good players, Bentancur and Kulusevski, two fantastic players. Romero's been fantastic. Richarlison again. So I want to come back to the style of the football. Okay, I don't think we can say to the board, yes, we'd like you to spend more money, and I think there's definitely a case that they could be spending more than they are. But I don't know how much. So even take, for example, Longley that we signed this summer. He's a stopgap. Everybody understands that. Now maybe he's going to be really good, and he's going to take Ben Davies' place in the squad, and we'll still sign another left-sided centre-back next season. But I think everybody understood that we had our first choice targets. They weren't available. And so we said, let's not, we don't have a bottomless pit. What's the point in spending 50 million on Pau Torres, and then next year we don't have anything to spend on the player that we actually want? So that, I think, we have to look at as a sensible decision. Spence, okay, we don't see him in training, but whether he's good enough, I don't understand why Conte had to throw him under the bus pretty much from the get-go. That could have stayed in-house, that he was a club signing. Why did everyone need to know that? I'm not sure that gives Spence
because he refused to play him. That's why.
I mean, I understand that he's refusing to play him, but he doesn't have to. He doesn't have to explain his team selections. He doesn't have to say, look, these, because he essentially said, look, all these guys, great, I'm really happy. Oh, but this one, yeah, the club bought him. And that for me is, that's basically telling Spence, you've basically got no chance before I've even seen you in training. Forget about getting any game time here.
So what are you saying, Alexander? What is the solution to our problems?
Sorry, my headphones.
Can you hear?
Say that again?
Hello?
I said, what is the solution? What are you suggesting the solutions to our problems are?
I think this is the thing. I think Conte needs to sign a new contract, and Levy needs to. Then, I think they need to have I mean, they should have had this discussion before now. They should have, if Conte's position is, if you're not going to spend money in January, then forget about it. He needs to be upfront with Levy and say, look, you want me to sign a new contract, and this is what it's going to take. And if Levy's not prepared to do it, then quite frankly, he should just, you know, draw a line in the sand now. If he wants a different manager, then I think, you know, Poch is waiting. He wouldn't be unless Thomas Tuchel as well is available. They're both competent Premier League managers. And the other thing is, I look at Newcastle, and I think at least on paper their squad isn't better than ours. And look at the results that Eddie Howe is getting with them. And I don't see how you can, whether it's Conte being frustrated that he's not getting what he wants, but ultimately if you've got some, you know what it's like working. If you know, okay, you're brothers, but you know, if one of you turned up to work with a face like a smacked arse every day, pretty soon you'd want to be rid of them as well, regardless of whether they had legitimate grievances. So you have to make a decision. That's what Levy's job is. Levy's in charge, so he needs to show leadership in one direction or another. Whether that's saying, okay, we've got this guy, his track record's amazing, we need to up the amount that we're spending on players, or we need to sign the players that he says he wants. But again, we don't know who he's asking for. We see things in the media. We can't base, if everything in the media was true, we'd be signing 100 players every transfer window. So we don't know how much of it's agent talk, how much of it's just journalists, with having to file a column so they'll write anything. We just have
Alex, ever since we sacked Pochettino back in 2019, this club has lacked direction. We don't know what we're doing. Let's be honest. They have gone from manager to manager. They've gone from different recruitment style to different recruitment style, putting money on different players for different managers. And now we're in a situation where it's the first manager we've had any sort of success with since Pochettino left in Conte, and we're not sure what we're doing, whether to back him or not. And it's still, we don't know what we're doing, even now, 4 years after Poch left.
I agree with you, but I also think it's not entirely unreasonable for Levy to look at it from a long-term perspective, that if this guy's not going to be here in six months, I mean, maybe the answer is for Levy to trigger the extension and say we'll kick the can down the road. I don't know. Maybe that's an option, but I don't think that's going to make a difference, because I think if Conte wants to go, he'll go. So again, I don't see how Levy is in a catch-22 situation. Is he going to spend another 100 million quid, let's say, on players in January, and then find that Conte says, "Yeah, thank you very much. I'm off in May," and then we have to find another manager who doesn't like his players, that plays a different system. So
you need to pick a philosophy, and you need to stick with it. You need to pick a way, and you need to stick with it. You can't keep chopping and changing every month, every 2 years, every year.
But Alex, if we get a new manager, are we going to tell them you have to develop Eric Dyer, and you have to develop Matt Doherty and Emerson Royale, and you have to develop Ben Davis and Davinson Sanchez, or are we not going to have to spend loads of money anyway?
I think we are going to have to spend a lot of money, because we've got, like I said, you could easily get rid of half of our squad. And
so you might as well back Conte then, because at least you know the holes to fill, don't you?
I mean, that would be my first choice, but I can understand why the club is equivocating on that, because he's only got 6 months left on his contract and he's not committing. Now they need to, and I don't think the club will act unless Conte signs a new deal.
What was the point of getting Conte in the first place then?
Well, we needed a manager, because Nuno. I mean, to be honest, I think the original plan was to have Conte in for the beginning of this season, because he wanted a year off from after he left Milan, or after he left Inter. But we have. This is the thing. I think we have backed him thus far. We signed players in January. We got rid of the players he said he didn't want. We've got players in that apparently he was quite happy with in the summer, with the exception of one player. And yes, you can't. And even Conte at the time was saying, don't think that we can challenge for the league after 1 or 2 transfer windows. We need 3 or 4 transfer windows to be able to be competitive. And he's right, because players like Dyer and Davies are, he got extra whatever percentage out of them last year, but they've gone back to type now that they've sort of settled back into the routine, and they could do with upgrading. I just think that we can't. We know that January, even with the World Cup and it being slightly different, January is a difficult window to make wholesale changes in, and maybe we don't have a lot of money because we've got all. We can't just keep. Again, looking at it from a business point of view, I know this is going to seem like a stupid example, but there's a reason that you don't have Gary Lineker on the watch-alongs for the games, right? Because that will make We Are Tottenham TV much better than it is now. With all the respect to you guys.
What are you trying to say to the people that come in on the watch-alongs?
I'm joking.
What's that all about? Barry, you listening?
Can't believe it.
So I think we just as a fan base we need to instead of Levy get out of our club, we should be, if people want to chant something, it should be Levy get your checkbook out, because that's what we want. That's what we want. We want him to spend money.
Yeah. But it's been 20 years, hasn't it?
It has been 20 years. It's true, but like I said, this Levy doesn't spend money. There's a degree of a myth to it. You can say maybe he could have spent a bit more, but realistically speaking, given the fact that we've spent, we've built a new stadium and a new training ground in that same period, how much more realistically can we expect the club to have spent? Maybe another 10-15% more. I don't really know that will make that much difference to
I'm not sure if it's about actual money spent, but more about what kind of personnel are being brought through the door, and if it's the kind of personnel that the manager in charge actually wants, and what's the point of bringing in players that managers don't want?
I mean, that's an open question, but we're not privy to that. We know that. I would assume that. I mean, Poch said he was offered players in that time when we didn't sign anybody. Poch said he was offered players, but he didn't want them. So it wasn't necessarily an unwillingness to buy players. Now, okay, maybe if he was being offered, the star striker from the Dog and Duck first 11, then maybe there's a reason he didn't want them.
But Pochettino also said that we need a painful rebuild that they weren't up for doing.
Well, they kind of were. We had our painful rebuild. It just turned out to be much more painful than we thought.
How have we had our painful rebuild when we've still got Dyer and Ben Davis and these kind of players that couldn't even get into the Poch team starting in our first 11?
Because the players that we tried to sign to upgrade on them, like Ndombele, Lo Celso and Sanchez, they're just not any good.
But these players were signed 4 years ago.
That's what I'm saying. That was after the Champions League final. We spent a fortune. We spent almost, I think, 170 million euros in that.
We spent 150 million that summer. Yeah, correct. Yeah. But that's only one step of the way. You need to rebuild the whole team, not just one area.
The problem was we signed them for Pochettino and we sacked Pochettino 2 months later. So then we appointed a manager who didn't want them. So then all of a sudden these players were stagnating.
I think Ndombele and Lo Celso were getting game time under Jose. So I don't think it's fair to say he didn't want them. I think
but let's be honest, the way Mourinho plays wasn't really fit for how they wanted to play. Let's be honest.
I mean, this is the thing. Since we got rid of Poch, we have had 3 managers who play football that none of us are happy with. The only reason we accept it is if we were winning. And we've had how many years of what's that now? 2019.
And
So
whose
two and a
fault
half
is it
years.
that those managers have come in?
Yeah, so we've had what 2.5 years of watching like some of the most boring football that I can remember.
Does it not
As a
all just
Spurs.
go back to the board, though?
I think it's too simplistic to say, look, okay, if you want to talk ultimate responsibility, who hires and fires people? But I think the idea that the board, I think the problem for me is, I think it's unfair to say that the board aren't acting in good faith. I think their board are trying to do the best for the club, and they are trying to support the manager in terms of signings. I think maybe there's a lack of coherence in terms of, Daniel Levy, before we signed Nuno, talking about the club DNA and having attacking football, and then we go and sign out, go and appoint a Mourinho clone, but without any of his success.
Let me ask you this, Alexander. If what you're saying is true, and the club and the board are acting in good faith, they're doing the most that they can to back each and every manager, and it's the same result every single time. You're looking at 22 years, 21 years, one trophy. Have they not taken us maybe as far as they can then?
I mean, that's certainly reasonable to say, look, we could do better under different owners who've got more, if I don't know, if there's some sheikh in Abu Dhabi that wants to buy us, or in Bahrain or Qatar, then maybe they'll have the money. Maybe, but they have to come along. They have to put up the money. And people talk about how much our club is worth. I don't think the club are going to want less than 3 billion to sell the club. I mean, if you think in terms of just the capital spend on the training ground and the stadium, plus the value of the playing squad, that's probably 2.5 billion from the get-go.
Yeah.
So the question is, who's got that sort of money, and who's got money on top of that to start spending on players?
Yeah,
I don't know anyone with that.
Alexander,
maybe it's upsetting, but this is the reality.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
you're right.
we're going to have to move on because we've still got a lot of people waiting to come on. But thanks for calling in, Alex, and we'll speak to you soon.
Bye.
All right, let's keep going and let's get Elias on. How you doing, Elias?
Hello, hi guys. I'm doing good. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, stressful day. Not going to lie, stressful day. But what do you want to come on and say? What do you want to talk about?
I think there are a lot of factors and there are a lot of myths which are, or there are half facts that are being taken into the consideration since yesterday's game. I mean, what Conte said in his interview and all that. I feel that a lot of statements don't tally, and I'm not for the fact that actually whatever is happening in the club all goes back to Daniel Levy. I would not agree with that, just that alone, because there are a lot of things that you need to consider. For example, yesterday Conte himself said that yeah, when they qualified for the Champions League last season, they made it till top four. That particular situation he was lucky because he had like 12 to 13 players who were fit, and they had all the best players available, which is actually not true because back then when we qualified for the Champions League, we had much worse situations than what we are having right now. You only had Bentancur, Hoiberg, and I think the other player was Harry Winks available in the midfield. For some of the games, you didn't have Kulusevski as well. He had some minor injury, but I think he was out for 1 or 2 games only. And then you had Romero out in most of the last games. You were playing Sanchez. Doherty had his surgery. Tanganga was out, so you had very little options back then. And now he's saying that uh, that time we were just lucky. I don't think it's purely that. I think that there was a lot of performances that were put were the motivated performances, which we are not seeing right now. And I personally feel that questions have to be asked of Conte, and there has to be some form of interrogation towards his approach towards football right now, towards his decisions. Because I think a lot of questions are being asked of Daniel Levy, but I'm kind of skeptical that why we don't ask that many questions of Conte. I'm not saying that yeah, Conte is to be blamed for, but there are certain things where questions have to be asked of Conte as well.
Elias, I agree where, look, questions do need to be asked of everyone at all times, and Conte doesn't alleviate himself from any sort of blame in this situation. That's true. But you look at the state of the squad, right? From when you're saying, and you're looking at the state of the squad now. When we were playing 2 games a week last season, we were seeing the same performances, we were seeing the same results when we were playing 2 games a week. You saw the back end of the season, we signed Kulusevski, we signed Bentancur. When we started playing 1 game a week, that's when you saw Tottenham play their football and really make that push for the top 4. Now you're seeing a lot of injuries in the team with Richarlison, with Kulusevski, with Bentancur, plus being asked to play 2 games a week, plus a World Cup in the middle of it. And you're seeing it revert back to what it was before the January transfer window last season. And on top of that, you're seeing the same things repeat itself under every manager. You saw it at the back end of Poch, you saw it under Jose Mourinho, and you saw it under Nuno as well. So as much as you want to question each and every manager, which is fair enough, you can do that. You're well within your rights to do that. Ultimately, the blame has to be lying on the common denominator.
Which is Daniel Levy, as what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
I agree with you that yes, there are a lot of disagreements perhaps. So the board and the management may not be on the same page at the moment. However, just now I think you were saying something about how many players did Poch sign throughout his 5 years. 27 was it?
27, yeah.
27, and it includes the loans and all that, I suppose. Or it.
I don't even think we brought in any loans when Poch was here, did we?
Can't remember.
Yeah,
Can't remember any.
But anyway,
I'm
we
not
brought in
sure.
27 players.
Now, just while Levy has had 2 windows, he has already had 10 players in just one, not even 1 year. So I think it's kind of unfair to say that Conte has not been backed, because just the fact that in 5 years, Poch brought in only like 27 players, and Conte already has half that number. And I think in this January, if he signed like 3 players, he would have 50% of that already. And that doesn't give the fact that just before Conte joined as well, that summer window, I mean, he enjoyed the perks of that from certain players as well. Like when you had players like Romero, he was just signed way kind of like before that. So it just doesn't make sense when we completely say, oh, Conte is just not backed. He has been backed actually to a great extent, like what Alexander was saying. We had a pretty decent summer window. Like even we were all very happy with the signings that we made. We were happy with Bissouma. We were happy with Langley coming in, and like I know although some of the fans say that oh Langley is like the next Harry Maguire, but we were quite kind of content with all that was happening. Now the situation is that after we have had all those signings, we are just not seeing any improvement in the way we play football. Uh, Even like let's just say the January or December last season, when we were playing 2 games a week, when we were in the Conference League, when we were in the Cup as well, even back then as well, we were playing much better than currently we are. And if I am Daniel Levy, if I am the board, and I have seen that actually, I have seen Conte play that way in that style. He had good performances against Liverpool, against teams like Brentford even back then, and the squad was worse than that. If I'm the boss, I can say, okay, this is what you can achieve with that much already. Then why do you need even more? Levy would question it back. So, I mean, even as some of us who are employers, if our staff or somebody they can do that much work in little time, I think we won't give them much more time or much more resources because we know that.
Wait, Elias. A year is a long time in football. The landscape has changed a lot. Teams like Villa, and Wolves are pointing Lopetegui and Unai Emery. The rest of the top 6, Man United have got their act together, getting Ten Hag. Chelsea are spending lots of money now under their new ownership. Liverpool, Arsenal, they're top of the league. Newcastle were nowhere in a year ago. Now look at them. They're the richest club in the Premier League and fighting for top four. The landscape has changed massively in the year since Conte has taken over. Now, Conte, when he took over, did brilliantly to get us into the top four. But we have now Champions League football, 2 games a week. When we were playing in the second half of the season, we're only playing 1 game a week. We need a lot more than just a few free signings and players who aren't going to affect the first team. We're still playing Eric Dyer and Ben Davis on a consistent basis. These aren't players who are going to push us on. So I would say that the landscape has changed. You're comparing us to a year ago, but look how much has changed in a year.
Definitely there has to be an improvement, because I don't deny the fact that we don't need an improvement, but in order to have that improvement as well, I don't think we can not just say that, oh, it's all about just money. I think clearly there are other things that we don't talk about as well, like why the players suddenly who were performing very well last season, they are suddenly slacking as well. Is it just a matter of that we are playing 2 games a week? I don't think so. I personally don't
Which
think so that
players?
that's
Well, who are you specifically talking about?
let's say, just say for example Son, or even if you can talk about, let's say, Højbjerg. He was not that great as well. I'm quite I didn't like Romero's performance yesterday as well. If Hugo is to be blamed for that first goal yesterday, I think Romero has an equal blame. He was just not ready. I think Glenn Hoddle on ESPN was describing him that yes, Romero was just not ready. Like, let's say if his goalkeeper makes a mistake, then he has to cover for him as well. Even Romero was not playing that well, and these are the kind of things we are seeing this year, which we didn't see last year. Why are we seeing that? So questions have to be asked of such things like, why are players not giving that sort of performances this year?
I hear that, but before Conte, right, these were happening, and then Conte kind of came in and sorted it out. But it doesn't mean, like, for example, like Eric Dyer. I know he didn't play yesterday, but there's only so much you can get those kind of performances out of him. You can't. We knew that he's not a player that we can rely on long term, and so it is proved. People like Ben Davis, people were ready to ship him out, and then Conte comes in, makes him a useful player. But again, there's only so much you can rely on him for. Does he? These players, a lot of these players in the squad, would they get into the squads of the other top 6 teams? I mean,
Ben
Son,
Davis,
would have, yeah, but other maybe in defence, yeah. Go on, say go. Sorry.
I think Ben Davis might. Eric Dyer may not. But definitely, I feel the matter of the fact is that I think Levy out is not the solution to all these problems, but maybe the question that we can raise up to Levy or the board is that, yeah, you need to step up, you need to improve, and also not just Levy alone. I think we need to demand this from the club altogether, that everybody has to reconcile. It seems like that there are a lot of disagreements, and there's a lot of resistance among them, which they need to sort out within themselves. It may be monetary, it may not be monetary, we don't know, but they have to be on the same page for all these things. They have to reconcile their matters in the January transfer window. Whatever it is, I think it's not just purely on Levy. There are questions that have to be asked of the players, of the transfer strategists, and also of Conte as well. I'm personally not very happy with the way Conte gave that interview yesterday.
But Elias, can I ask you this? What is the plan at Tottenham? What do you think the plan is right now? Do we have a plan?
We currently don't have a plan. Definitely, that's where I think the disagreement.
So, I mean, isn't that not the hierarchy's fault?
Exactly. How can you back this board when you can see clearly how there's no plan?
Okay, the plan is not evident because Conte has one plan, Levy has another plan. Partici may have another third plan. We really don't know. I think Partici is like the middleman right now who is handling stuff between Conte and Levy. Uh, they are visions actually, but both the visions are not matching. So okay, we might say that okay, Levy's vision is he wants to sign young players who are who potentially can play, like let's say someone like Kulusevski or Bentancur. That may not be Conte's plan. Conte wants players who are ready and they can just come in and play. So there are a lot of disagreements. I think we need to find a middle ground somewhere out of it, and I think that's what we did last January as well. But if let's say really we want to go and sign big name players, the 70 million, 50 million signings, then then Daniel Levy has to take the checkbook out. He has to agree with it. He just can't say to Conte that, okay, I would, and then he back off as well. He has to do that as well. He needs to make it very clear. But right now, what I think is Conte does know what Daniel Levy's plan is, and yet his plan doesn't agree, and he's still willing to stay on and all that. I don't understand that. So he needs to make it very clear. If his plan is not matching with Daniel Levy, I think I would rather he walk.
Yeah, and I think it will come to that. It will come to that at the end of the season. But Elias, thanks for coming on today, my friend, and we'll speak to you next time.
Come on, you Spurs.
Nice one,
Come on, you
Elias.
Spurs. All right. Super chat from Manny Man says, we should be embarrassed. We hire 2 world-class managers and still not win a League Cup. Carrying passengers from Pochettino. Sold a nightmare, not a dream.
It's a crazy coincidence how Conte and Mourinho could just win everywhere but Tottenham, but it's never.
Even Roma, he just walks in there and wins a Conference League.
But it's their fault.
Yeah,
They didn't work
always.
here.
Always their fault. Let's go on to our next guest, and that is Ben Bradford. How you doing, Ben?
Can you hear? Oh, we can't hear you, mate.
Are you on mute, Ben?
There you go.
There you go.
Sorry. Yeah, I was just saying how it's a bit early up in Australia. It's 3:30. But I decided to
So
come on
is
here.
Daniel Levy? Is it Daniel Levy or is it Antonio Conte keeping you awake at night?
It's a bit of both, to be honest. I heard Alexander talking on here before. I think he was saying that it was like 10% of the funds that weren't used or whatnot with Daniel Levy. And I'd just like to point out, I think the main thing with Daniel Levy was not that he wasn't spending the money. It was the money that he wasn't spending. And, you know, it was the players where we were close to getting these players to be brought in. And he was haggling over these small prices. You know, you hear long transfers that just gone on for weeks, just a saga of transfers where if you'd spent, you know, you're talking 2 million, 3 million more to get some of these players. And, you know, we've got a world-class player there. I don't know. We're getting snatched by everyone else whilst we're sitting around here waiting for this magical money to come in. I mean, one of the things I want to point out was this Google deal that was supposed to have for the stadium. What's happened with that? Please tell me what's happened, because there's been so much talk about we're going to have this sponsor for the stadium, $1 billion deal. I haven't seen any of the money there. We don't have anything coming in for it, and I don't know. I find how this club is being run. It's a little bit disappointing here, but
For me, Ben, I get all the frustrations with the spending and everything, but and that's all very valid. But right now, what I'm most concerned about is every team around us in the top 6 have a clear vision and a plan of what they're doing, where they're heading, what they want to achieve, where they want to go, and have a long term, not specifically long term, but have a plan of what exactly they're doing for a manager. But I'm looking at us right now, and we don't know what we're doing. Do we like our manager? Do we not like our manager? Are we ready to back him?
Yeah.
Does the manager want to stay here? We don't seem to have a clear vision of what we want to do right now, whereas everyone else does, and that ultimately has to go to the board, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, you can blame the board for this stuff. I mean, we were looking at all these centre backs. I remember hearing names, Pau Torres, Bastoni, you know, all these names being thrown around, and we end up with Longley on a loan. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I mean, with the board here have an opportunity to back Conte, and you know, I was just writing down because I was just thinking of a couple of people: Hincapié, Scalvini, Skriniar, De Vrij, Bastoni, Pau Torres, Mark Gahey. Any of those players in the back line, and we don't lose that game. I think we need a bit more passion. We're probably missing a bit of Richarlison's passion right now. I think it's a little bit tough, but I don't know. I don't think we're that far away from getting this team to where we want it to be.
Will we actually get it there? Will we get it there?
I think we do. I think if we get the James Maddison, we need a free kick taker desperately. I don't know what is going on with Son taking the free kicks. I don't know what's happening with Kane taking the free kicks, but it's terrible. It's embarrassing. You know, you look across all the league, or even in the top 6, everyone's got a set free kick taker. We've got Erdegaard, we've got players like, we've got Mahrez here, who's got talent. We've got Trent, you know, we've got these players, right? Looking at it, we've got Harry Kane who smashes it into the wall or it goes over every time.
Mm-hmm.
It's disappointing. Another thing with the set piece is, why is Son still on corners? It was dreadful. It was dreadful yesterday. I don't know why he's got it. We've got Perisic who can whip it in on both feet. I don't know why Son's still on it. Son shouldn't even be on the field right now. And he's taking corners, sending it to the first man, just getting kicked away.
Who'd you play instead of Son?
I was on here last night. I said we play Perisic and Kane up top, and we go for the 3-5-2 or the 5-3-2, whatever you want to call it. We play Kane and Perisic up top, play Sessegnon on the left, and we play midfield 3. I think if we played a midfield 3 against Aston Villa, we wouldn't have lost that game. And to be honest, and yeah, you can sit and be like, oh, I know it's easy because, you know, I manage my own team, like a Sunday league team, and you know, I cop a fair bit of shit from players and people tell me that they think they can manage it, and you know, who am I to say anything about managing the team? But I looked at that team sheet and instantly I was like, we're going to get overrun in the midfield, and it was so clear and obvious. You just looked at them. They had, you know, Aston Villa had the players stacked up against them. Emery knew what he was doing, and we got overrun. We were passing it sideways and back for the whole game, and you know, we had 1 or 2 good opportunities, but I don't know. We weren't going to win that game. You just saw it. We weren't winning it, and I think that sort of explains a lot of Conte's tenure. I think people get a little bit excited and sort of their eyes get a little bit glossed over by the whole Champions League thing. But Conte, we lost a couple of really poor games last season as well. I was actually looking at it. We've got games where we shouldn't have dropped points. We've got that Manchester United thrashing by Ronaldo last season. We've got that loss to Brighton at home. We've got the draw to Brentford. That Aston Villa game last season, the 4-0, we could have lost that game very easily. I don't know. There was a couple of them, just because Arsenal bottled their top 4 chances last season. I feel like everyone's doing it. Us playing Champions League this year it's luck, it's a miracle, and we should still be in Europa League. The performances that we're putting out here, we're not a Champions League club. We've got the players, we've got everything. It looks like we're a Champions League club, but we're not playing like it at all. And
it's an illusion, isn't it? This club is just an illusion.
Yeah, I'm praying for February. I just hope AC Milan can just be nice and easy and just, you know, 1 or 2 goals and just let us be, because I think if we played them tomorrow, we'd get a hiding. I think it would just be, yeah.
You look like you need a rest, Ben. I think.
I think you need some sleep, Ben. You need some sleep.
I'd work. Well, I don't know. It was before.
At some point.
Yeah. So at some point, it all gets a bit blurred. You know, being an Aussie watching the Premier League and whatnot. I mean, yeah, it's. I don't know.
Big up to you, Ben. Staying up till 3:30 a.m. to talk about Enoch and Conte. Where does it all end, Ben? Where does it all end, in your opinion?
Well, I don't think Poch coming back is a good thing. I think the only way we're going to get real change is if Enoch and Levy do leave. But I don't know whether that's going to happen. We need a collective fan support, and I'm sorry I can't go to any marches or anything, but we need to be marching. We need to be leaving the stadium if we want something to be done. I just don't think the Spurs fans will actually do it. You're talking about them getting all the fans after into the store and whatnot. That's not sending a message to Enoch or Levy. It's nothing. We're going there and buying their merchandise after. I don't know. I've been really disappointed with Tottenham this season. I had to explain to my girlfriend why we were losing. She's like, "Oh, but Son was going well last season." I had to explain to her, you know, like it's been shocking. It's been dreadful. It's just, you know, it's really difficult to sort of to put a pin onto why we are losing, because if you look at the squad there last season, we would have flogged Aston Villa. I reckon that squad there, I think we would have been grateful to have the likes of Perisic there. Maybe that might have been a weakness, but if we looked at that and we saw Basuma in the back line, we saw Langley, I don't know. It's so much has developed over the league has developed so much in a year, and Spurs are looking like they're getting left behind. And I think we're finishing 8th or 7th this year. Brighton, Fulham, they're all playing better football. Liverpool, I mean, although it was 2 own goals, they only need 1 or 2 wins and they can get straight back into being, maybe not this season, but title challenges. You know what I mean? That quality team out there signing likes of Gakpo. We're looking for 7 million to try and cough up for Porro. I think that should be an instant buy. I don't even think we should hesitate over that.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's Daniel Levy just scoop out a little bit of money, just get us a decent right wing back, because I think Perisic is class. I think that we've got it on the left. Why not have it on the right? I think when you have poor players like Emerson running up and down the wing, it downgrades the whole team. And if we add a bit of class there, it takes 1 or 2 games to build a bit of momentum. And we've got Arsenal coming up, we've got Man City coming up, we've got the Champions League coming up. If we don't do something, we're going to be an embarrassment. If we're not already an embarrassment, we're going to get flogged, and it's going to be embarrassing. And I think it's, this Arsenal team. Yeah, I think they tear us up. It's sad. I want to support Spurs, but what do you do?
I know it's getting increasingly more difficult. But Ben, thanks for coming on today, my friend, and we'll speak to you next time.
Thanks for calling in, Ben.
Yeah. So come on, you Spurs.
Come on.
Let's keep going, guys. Keep going. And look who we have next. It is the Jorical people.
Come on, Jory.
Hey, guys.
Yes, Jory.
Leave me out!
Straight in there.
Jory, long time no speak. How you been?
I've been all right. Apart, it's been nice not having Tottenham football, right? All the World Cup stuff, and then I thought it'd be nice getting the real football back, and wouldn't you know it, it wasn't so nice. Can you hear me, guys?
Yeah, we can hear you. We just heard an echo from the other end of the studio, but it's all good now.
All right. But yeah, now it's of course coming head on, and yeah, I don't know. There's so many points to touch on.
No, yeah, I was about to say, yes. So I want to know what you would say. Look, we've had a couple of callers, Alex and Elias, who, looking at the the facts of ENIC and their tenure, and Alex pointing out that since Arteta's taken over, we spent a similar amount of money to Arsenal. Since Pochettino got appointed.
Just there, Alex, you need to learn to read financials better, because that's complete nonsense. I looked it up because I knew it. The only thing that matters is the net spend. And net spend, we're bottom of the heap as always, whether it be Europe or Premier League. I've got it the last 10 years, if you want to hear it.
Go on.
I think it's 20 teams on this list. It's Wolves, Brighton, Leicester, Crystal Palace, Tottenham, Newcastle, and Liverpool, Bayern München, West Ham, Inter, Chelsea, Aston Villa, Everton, Milan, Juventus.
And that's since 2013, is it?
That's since 2012. It's a year old.
And what is the actual figure? Does it have it there, what the net spend is?
Yeah. The actual figure from Tottenham is 336 million, and it's in pounds. So,
Jory, Alexander's in the comments. He says that net spend is irrelevant. It just shows where our transfer revenue came from.
It's not at all irrelevant. This is the business model when it comes to players and buying and selling. it's all about basically feeding bigger clubs. It's about making a profit on this side as well. It's the, I mean, you can say, okay, we spend a lot, and then but our club philosophy is developing young players into stars and so on, and then selling them to Madrid and whatever, and then go again and so on. Potts built a miraculous squad from almost no means, and we had it. And this is like, if we take the Arsenal example that Alexander brought up, this is now when you just buy 1, 2, 3 players at the most to support what you've built there, and then you get it over the line. Our squad didn't do it. Alexander was talking about how they can't commit because Conte is not committing. They have a long-term vision and so on. How long-term is this vision? 30 years? They've been here 20 years and 16 managers, and I don't know how many hundreds of players. If this is their level of performance in implementing a long-term vision, aren't they incompetent at least? I mean, apart from being corrupt, lying, and cheap and all of that, you got to at least give me that they're incompetent if they can't, execute their long-term vision in 20 years, at the same time as the club has grown exponentially in terms of fan reach and so on. So I don't know.
They keep switching their vision, don't they, Jory? It's going from one thing to the other. They don't know. I mean, what's been the vision since Pochettino was sacked? What is been the vision?
The vision has been to get over the next news cycle. That's it. Just get through the next news cycle. Just keep us happy, the last remnants of the legacy fans. The real vision is basically the biggest, most glorified burger stand in London, to be honest. That's the real vision, is to be a consumer ATM for them, And I think you had a call in a couple of days ago where George called in, and as always, George is really brings some interesting point, and his unique eyes on the financial is very good to have there. And he brought up something that's very important, and I feel it's a little bit missed in the community, certainly by the journalist, which is that now the stadium is completed as a project. It has now been separated from the club and is in its own company now. The club does not own the stadium. You have to understand that. What you guys have paid all these years, you don't own that now. So now Levy can exit the club. They will still own the stadium, and I can bet you they will hold us to ransom if they exit the club. So what I need to know, by the way, and I put this to George, maybe if he's doing research anyway, is can you figure out if the reported price tag that ENIC has put on Tottenham, which is, I think, right, 6 billion was the last rumor I heard, which I think is a little bit insane considering what other clubs are going for. Is that with or without the stadium is my big question. But anyway, I think, if you take all these negotiations where we're 2 million short, we're 5 million short and stuff like that, that's we're not short because we're short, and we're not short because Levy is stingy. He is stingy, but he's so stingy that he never intended to sign these players. He just makes that the excuse to get out of that. He simply wants us to believe that it is a negotiation, and then he simply makes sure that he's completely unreasonable in terms of getting a contract through, and it'll fall apart by itself. That's his MO. And for me, it's like, okay, if it's not the board, then it's the manager. Once again, we've been through the gamut of brilliant managers, but okay, let's say it's Conte. We fire Conte, we bring in a new manager, and we're not and he's going to win without backing. And they're going to back him because he's a lesser manager, because no elite managers coming from now. It's like we've made the biggest ad sign that says, "Are you an elite manager? Are you an elite player? Come to Spurs, and we will ruin your career in no." It's
Pretty much.
yeah, it's poison, and like Kane and Son are basically just being held ransom now in this club, and nothing in terms of ambition for football is ever going to come for them, So of course they're going to do everything they can to get out this summer, both of them, I think. And if they can't, because Levy is crazy in that regard as well, then they will down tools next season. I'm sure of it, and I don't blame them. And like I will be downing tool as a fan as well. I really don't understand these people that are not seeing Levy as we are seeing them. I really don't understand at what point can we basically talk about their management being a failure. What is it that you need to have for one of the biggest clubs in Europe? Because we are one of the biggest clubs in Europe in terms of fan base, in terms of cachet, in terms of history, in terms of all of these things that are very valuable. When can you talk about the board failing? When can you talk about they being pariahs, just holding us for ransom, rent seekers, that's what they are. Levy's a Old Testament rent seeker, he should be thrown out of the high street and the temple. What he's doing is keeping the Tottenham community caught in this kind of illusion of build-up, because yes, you have commercial build-up, you have the stadium and so on, but really I wouldn't even talk about keeping that we're keeping what do you call, like treading water anymore. We are sinking. We're sinking in two ways. One is by our own means. The other one is that everything around us is rising, and we're not keeping pace. So
yeah, and I agree with that. And as well, like I've asked like everyone pretty much in the call, like, what is the plan for Tottenham? What is Tottenham's plan right now? What are we doing? And the fact that even the people like Alexander and Elias, who have been less critical of the board since calling, they can't even answer me that question. And the fact of the matter is, if there is no plan going forward, when everyone else seems to have their vision in place right now, then that has to go to the ownership, because how can they not have a plan going forward and how we're going to improve and where this club is heading right now, when Conte's been here over a year already. They sacked Nuno after 2 months to bring him in. We sacked Pochettino in 2019 because of a bad run of form, and now we're sitting here now in 2023. And we have one of the best managers in the world, and no one can tell me what the plan is at Tottenham.
The insanity, guys, is that the guys that wanted Potts out at the time are the guys that want Conte out now and Potts back. That's basically the fan base.
It's true.
It wasn't me. I'm sure it wasn't you guys, even though it wasn't going great. You know what Potts did, by the way, in those last days? He kept playing. He kept doing his Potts thing. And you know what happened? 7-2 happened in Bayern München, and a month later he's gone. That's what's going to happen if you do what you want to do with your champagne football with garbage players.
I was about to say, Jory, try playing a high line with Dyer and Davis in your back four. Try doing that.
Exactly.
Well, first of all, Poch tried playing a high line with those players, and he banished them from the team. He dropped them from the team.
Yeah. And these are our main players now, with no real backup even, and people are trying to put this on Conte. The way I see it is like if you have like I said before, Potts built up something amazing, unbelievable. Really shouldn't be able to do it in that day and age when he did it, but he did it. And then you needed 2 or 3 players to get it over the line. We would have won that season, etc. We might have a Champions League trophy if we'd done better, blah, blah, blah. And the board decided not to do it. At what point do you understand that the board will never, ever risk its own money to get it over the line? And it won't even risk the money that we're getting in from revenues and stuff like that, and from increased revenues from Champions League. We're not even putting that on the table. Where's the 50 million that we didn't spend this summer? Brian Daigle pointed out perfectly. Like we thought we had a great window with Mourinho the one summer there, and it was quantity over quality. It turned out, I hope and I think that Spence is going to be a great right back, but are we serious when we're putting Jet Spence as a right back as a right wing back signing, and he's going to now go to the Champions League and compete with Hakimi and others at that level? Is that a serious club? Is that a big club? Is that a club that's in any way taking the opportunity that a manager like Conte grants you when he comes into your club?
And the thing is, if we want to be a club that is like what I've heard, like a Borussia Dortmund style, building young players, then you don't departure from that for 4 years and expect to just press the reset button 4 years later.
We were that club in the Premier League. I would even say we were a better version of it on the Poch, But even a Dortmund needs a scouting network that's better than any in Europe and so on. We don't have that. That's not who we are. We build it all on the back of Potts, and then we kicked him when Potts didn't want to play along with the financial side of the player recruitments and so on. So that's kind of the always the line in the sand is when it comes to the fact that we need to look at this business model around our recruitment. Then these managers, they quickly become unpopular, and soon after that out the door. And I would just say to these, it's bad. Like probably many that watch this channel and know me think I'm a bit of a cynical old guy and whatever. And that's not good. And I appreciate you, Ben and Sim. You give me a bit of pushback once in a while when I'm being a bit too negative and so on. But there's one thing that's more destructive than being too cynical. It's being too naive. That's the most destructive of all. That's where you really do some serious damage, because you get bamboozled like you wouldn't know it. And this is like the only reason that we're having this conversation is because we love this club and we don't want to face the fact that it's in such a shitty situation. That's the reason why we really don't just face it, but because we're always trying to find some glimmer of hope somewhere. But I'm sorry to tell you guys, there's really none to be found with this board. So
I think George is responding to a question you asked him before. He says, the balance sheet of Tottenham Hotspur Stadium Limited is 160 million due to the borrowing against the stadium. Assuming ENIC wants 6 billion, I assume that would need to include the stadium.
Yeah. I mean, I would think anything else would be insanity for me. And it's still an expensive club anyway, But I'm not I wouldn't even put it past them to not include it, whatever, But I would think it would be pretty crazy without that. But I think George put a really important point there. If these guys were anywhere near bleeding for the club, they would never kind of separate the stadium. The stadium is what the whole project, the whole club has been bending over backwards to basically erect this stadium, and now it's standing there in all its glory. They have now, siphoned that off to the side for themselves to have. It's not part of the club anymore as a financial factor. So that alone, that little fact alone should tell you how cynical, how not non-interested in anything that has to do with club glory these guys are. I think it's I mean,
All right.
yeah. I'm sorry, guys, to have to rain on your parade, and you have.
We don't have no parade here. I tell you that.
Coming back and getting back to normal broadcasting and stuff like this, but you know the
Don't
other.
worry, Jory. It wasn't you. It was the other bald-headed fella.
I know, but I just want to finish on like the only positive really for me is that it is a big wake-up call, and I was really happy to hear in the stadium, even though I think this is uncomfortable like everybody else thinks. I think, and you guys have been talking about it today, what to do and stuff like that. And I would say, in my view, I've known, like I say, my brother-in-law knows Daniel Levy personally and Joe Lewis from his business dealings, you know. So I've known types like these guys for a long time, you know. I can promise you, these chants, they have a big effect. If Levy can't go into his crown jewel and be proud and boastful about it, that puts marks on it for sure. So I would say, if nothing else, people just keep the singing going. It's very important. It has a big effect. So if nothing else, it'll hurry up the sale of the club, you know. So let's
right.
get the Saudis in there or something, eh?
Yeah, let's hope so. But Jory, thanks for coming on. Good to chat to you, albeit under not such great circumstances, but always good to chat to you.
Happy New Year, guys, and great to see you back.
Exactly. Happy New Year, Jory. Happy New Year. See you soon. Happy New Year, mate. See you later. And that was the Joracle, everyone. Let's move on to Stelios.
Hello.
Stelios.
How are you?
Back in the dial-up internet, I see.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, but you're moving in like slow motion, a bit like Tottenham.
Sorry, guys. There's nothing I can do. The internet's not good where I am.
How are you, though?
Oh, is he gone?
I can see him blinking. I can just see you blinking.
Yeah, can you hear us still?
Yes. Yes.
Still, I think
you.
You should just say what you need to say, and we'll just do that, because it's not going to work us talking to each other, I don't think.
All right. What I'll do then is when I finish what I'm saying, I'll just pause for like 10 seconds, and then if you want to say something, I'm sure I'll catch it. But just a couple of things I'm hearing fans calling in and saying that I'm sorry, but it's just categorically wrong what's being said. Elias saying that we were lucky to get top 4 last season. Nuno had the worst stats of any Premier League manager starting at a new club. So, therefore, if Conte was lucky to completely change all of that and get us top 4, then by Elias's logic, Nuno was really unlucky then. He was unlucky to be failing every week. Because if Conte was lucky, then the other guy must have been unlucky. Conte got us top 4 because of his good management, and we got lucky in the sense of transfers when our rivals didn't buy players. But nonetheless, he still had to implement those so-called rejects, Kulusevski and Bentancur, into our squad. Both those players were missing yesterday, by the way. The same 2 players that helped us turn our season last year. Regarding, I think, what Adam was saying, I think, first of all, Adam, well done to him, because it's great when you see young fans coming on the show, guys. And I think, you know, it's important that we hear younger voices as well as older voices. So big up to Adam for coming on and speaking. But he's talking about contracts not being signed. Sorry, Adam was the guy yesterday. Beg your pardon. He came on yesterday after the match, not today. Adam was saying...
Talking about Adam William Cahill.
Yeah, he came on the show yesterday, guys, after the post-match fan show.
Yeah.
And he was saying how Conte just signed the contract. You know, you've got to put it's on Conte for not signing the contract. Well, how do we even know that a contract has been offered to Conte. There's no evidence whatsoever to suggest that a contract has been put in front of Conte. None. So for any fan to suggest it, where's your facts? You're guessing. You're making it up. A bit like people that are saying, you know, we had a debate the other day, Sim, before the Aston Villa game, where you suggested that the Man United are trying to sell the club. There's no evidence to suggest the club has been put up for sale yet. It's all speculation. So Conte can't sign a contract unless it's been put in front of him. And he should only sign the contract if it meets what he requires to be successful. So that's another thing. You had two people that came on today talking about the money, and Jory was touching on it. Guys, it's not about how much we've spent over 3 years and how much Arsenal have spent over 3 years. We've spent 300 million over 5 managers. Poch, Jose, Nuno, Mason, Conte. If you're going to spend big money, spend it on your manager and his vision and his plan. And if his vision and his plan doesn't match that of the club's, you don't hire him. And that all stems from the top. If you're a business, you put these systems and processes into play. You are the one who structures the organization to function in a way that you want. And then you bring in the pieces to make it work. So if you bring in a piece called Conte and it doesn't work, you failed to bring in the right piece. But here's the kicker. We failed to bring in that piece 14 times. We failed to bring in the recruitment piece 6 times. Who's that on? 100% on Levy and Enoch. And this talk about we spend big money, it's how we spend it as well. Yesterday, question for you two and everyone watching. How many players on the pitch yesterday who started or came on as a sub cost us £30 million or more?
1.
Romero, right?
Correct.
Okay. Let's talk about Arsenal's money. £50 million on Jesus, 35 million on Odegaard, 35 million on Zinchenko, 45 million on Xhaka. Sorry, on Partey. 30 million on Xhaka, 50 million on Ben White, Ramsdale, 24 million plus 6 million add-ons, 30 million. So this big youth project everyone fantasizes about Arsenal is a bit of a fallacy. There are some youth players they've brought in that they've done on the cheap, but I've just mentioned 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players they spent over £30 million on. Tell me how many players at Tottenham Hotspur we paid over £30 million for. So I'm sorry, Alexander and Elias, you put up a good argument, but I can tear it to pieces. We cannot defend, and this isn't an attack on them. I'm attacking the argument. I think they're both great for calling in, and big up for them for supporting Tottenham. You know, it's all about Spurs fans for me right now. We need to come together on this, but we also need to be talking about the hard facts of what is happening at Tottenham. Levy and Enoch for me, and I called up last Friday before the Villa game, the pre-weekend show you guys do, and I said to you guys, you know, what Levy and Enoch have done is failed to progress the club. The last 10 years, since we got top 4 with Redknapp, we have not progressed. We haven't sorted out backing a manager. We haven't sorted out our recruitment. We haven't won a trophy, and we continue to misspend the money. We buy quantity over quality. We never ever say, right, here's the window, here's 150 million, just buy 3 or 4 top players. What we've got to do is buy one really expensive player, like a Richarlison, a couple of loan deals, Longley and Perisic. We've got to get an undervalued player who's got 1 year left in his contract, which is good if he's a good player like Basuma, and then a couple of players that are never going to play, Udogie and Spence. What's the point? Arsenal go into the window, they buy Zinchenko, Jesus, they buy players ready to go now, ready now. And the young players, they work with them in the background. We don't do that. That is not on Conte. Conte doesn't structure those processes. Conte doesn't build the vision of the club. Conte comes with a winning formula. You match it or get rid of him. But we've done this 14 times. If this was once, twice, 3 times, respect. You can say, look, this manager, man, he's not at it, or this recruitment guy, we got it wrong. But when you've had 6 recruitment guys, Baldini, Kamoli, Arneson, Hitchin, Paratici, and so on, Paul Mitchell, and you've had 14 managers, I'm sorry, anyone who blames Conte or anyone who's Conte out, you are fueling Daniel Levy what he wants, which is for the fans to turn against the manager so that he can deflect from his failures and change the manager, because you've got a short-term vision and no one's got a long-term plan. They have got no long-term vision for the football side of the club. We've seen the plans for the 3 skyscrapers they're building across the road from the West Stand. We've seen the plans for the indoor gymnasium and the hotel they're building behind the South Stand. We've seen the drawings. We've seen the reports in the media. You can go to the council and see the architectural plans and the schematics. What plan have you ever seen for the football team? This is on Levy and Enoch. That's why Brian Daigle, me, Danny, Will, Henry Wright, and so on, and Sava and everyone. Enoch out, Levy out. They have no care for the football team, guys.
So what would you say to people? So you're saying that, yeah, it's about where you spend the money, not the money being spent. But is there not an argument to say that since Conte's come in, you know, we spent, as you say, 60 million on Richarlison. We've had Kulusevski and Bentancur. You know, we did give him a right wing back he refuses to use. You know, how much of the blame does Conte reside with that? Because, you know, surely we have players there to play better football than we did yesterday.
Okay, let's talk about those players you mentioned. Richarlison, injured. Jed Spence, he never wanted him. And I said on your show on Friday, he shouldn't play him, because if he plays him, he's sending a message to the board to say, I will play whatever you give me. But by not playing him, he's sending a message to the board, stop buying players that you want, because they're never going to play here. I need players that I want. So I've explained Spence. Richarlison's injured. There's nothing we can do. Who were the other players you mentioned, Sim?
We had, I'm saying we signed Kulusevski, Bentancur, since Conte's
Injured.
there as well.
Injured. All injured.
We signed Perisic. We signed, who else we signed? We signed Longley. Like, what I'm saying is Bissouma. What I'm saying is,
where are we, guys? Where are we going with this?
No, but what I'm saying is, in the last 10 games, right, we've conceded the first goal every game.
Yeah.
We've not played good football, maybe up until we're losing. Like, how much of the blame does Conte take for that?
Well, Arteta, in his first 2 seasons, was diabolical, absolutely atrocious, losing every single game back-to-back. Fans wanted him out. Jurgen Klopp, first couple of seasons, nothing. Sir Alex Ferguson, the greatest ever Premier League manager, first 3 years, nothing, absolutely nothing. My response to you, Sim, is let's stop blaming, let's stop questioning Conte and judge him after 3 years, once he's had 3 transfer windows of the summer, after he's been backed, and after that period of time, we can say, right, we have replicated what Liverpool, Arsenal, and Man United have done. Now we can say this is on Conte. But here's the problem. We can't do that because we're going into a transfer window without him signing a contract, if he's been offered one. And if he hasn't been offered one, again, Daniel Levy's to blame because he hasn't fired him. If I gave you a contract to work for me and you said, I don't want it, I would say to you, okay, I'm going to part company with you. I need staff that work for me that are committed for the long haul. So why has Daniel Levy kept him? For all the fans out there who question Conte not signing a contract, can you please question Daniel Levy why he's kept Conte then? He's kept him because he knows Conte's going to go out and tell the world why he never signed the contract. Levy knows this guy's got a mouth on him. Levy knows this guy will go to the media and say, I've told the club my vision. I've told them what we need to do. But if the club likes finishing 4th, 5th, 7th, that's their vision. Levy knows this guy's going to expose him. So he can't fire him. What a situation situation for a chairman to be in. He's such a fantastic chairman that he's backed against the wall. And after yesterday's result, there's a bus pushing against him against the wall now. So I hear your points, Tim, but we are in the same cycle yet again. Another manager after 1 year, 18 months, time to go, bring in the next one. Every person that's called in has roughly mentioned something about a plan, something about what's the vision. Guys, why is every fan saying that? Are we all stupid? Like, is every fan just an idiot? And we're just saying it because it sounds cool, it's trending. We're saying it because we can't see it. I just told you, we saw the diagrams and the pictures for the stadium 10 years before it was built. 3 years before they started building, they changed the design. We were even told we're going to go to Wembley. They told us we were going to have to commute from Wembley Stadium, from North London to Wembley Stadium. They told us we'd be there for 2 years. They told us that when we come back, it'll be the best stadium in the world. There was a plan. There was a 10-year plan for that. Where's the plan for the football team? Are we a football club or a property development business? That's all I'm asking. And every fan is asking that. Why? Because we're not stupid. We can see they don't care about football. Where do we go from here? I'll tell you where we go from here. We either back Conte to the hill, give him everything he bloody wants, or we sack him and we bring back the Martin Jol days. Let's go back to mid-table. Bring it on. Let's rock.
But I also find it very interesting when people talk about, like, you know, they're not sure whether to back Conte and stuff, and I hear the noise about you know, our project or our philosophy is to buy young players and build them up on low contracts and stuff, and you know, we want to kind of be this team who are always buying young players with potential and stuff like that. It's like, I don't understand, why would you depart? Like, we had that under Pochettino, and they chose to depart from that project. It wasn't anyone else's decision. The club decided to do that, to depart from that project and bring in Mourinho and all these things. And then 4 years later, they're saying, oh, actually, we want to go back to that project. It's like, then how is that? How is there any foresight there? How is there any planning there? You just made a mistake for 4 years. Is that what they're saying? And now they want to go back to what they had before. I mean, it's absolutely ludicrous in my opinion. If you don't have a philosophy and then just take a break from that philosophy for 4 years, that doesn't make any sense.
Well, are you questioning what the board are saying? Because the board haven't come out and said that. Are you questioning the board here, allegedly what they've said, or are you questioning fans who want that?
I'm the board.
Well, if that's what the board wants,
oh, that's where all the journalists. I mean, first of all, Conte's pretty much said it himself, hasn't he? He said the club philosophy is young players, low wages.
But didn't Levy say it? Didn't he say now is the time to win? We need to start winning trophies and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but Conte says the club philosophy is young players on low contract, on low wages.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, the little bit of confusion between you two just then, like what did they say, what didn't they say, guys?
No, it's a different period of time. Still, different period of time. After Pochettino left and we signed Jose Mourinho, Daniel Levy says he wants to win now. Now's the time to start winning. Blah 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 blah. And now, 4 years later down the line, they're saying, no, it's not time to win now. We need to buy for the future.
Well, this is why every Spurs YouTube channel right now is getting minimum 500, 600 views a show, up to 1,000, 2,000 live views. This is why the South Stand chanted, we want Levy out, we want Levy out. This is why everywhere you go in the media right now, the talking point is Levy Enoch. Exactly what you just described. That utter shambolic mismanagement of the footballing side of the club is why there's this massive turn across all spectrums. Fans, media, club, you name it, YouTube. That's why everything's turning against them. Listen, Brian Daigle, myself, I've mentioned all the other names. We've been saying this for how long? We've been saying they've got to go because their heart, their passion, their hunger has got nothing to do with football. Football is the excuse for them to use as a business to make money, right? They're not the only ones, by the way. Look what's happening down the road at West Ham. Just as fucking shocking, right? But we're Spurs fans. We only care about Tottenham. This is the new world of football. It's a corporate animal. It's a business machine. You've got to please your personal finances, and the fans who without you don't have a business. Well, to do that, you need to win. You need to be competitive. You need to have a plan. They're only doing one side of it. So our argument is, get them out. Bye-bye. Thank you. We want someone that's going to come in and do both. Make yourself money, but give us something back in return as well as fans. For 22 years, I've paid season ticket money. For 22 years, I've travelled to home and away games. Not many away games, but a few. For 22 years, I used to buy merchandise. For 22 years, I've been doing this. What do I get back from it? You know, it's all right entertaining me every 2 or 3 managers and then not entertaining me. But I want to see us go to finals. You know, we're supposed to be a top 6 club. We're supposed to be glory Tottenham Hotspur. We've had legends like Bill Nicholson, Keith Birkinshaw. We've had phenomenal talent in this club. Bale,
There is
Gaza,
to do, my
Hoddle.
friend. There is to do.
Exactly. We're not this little shitty mediocre club. We're not an elite level Bayern Munich, Liverpool. We're not. But we are a club that's got history, guys. We've won 20 trophies. 20. That's no joke. It's not wow. But my God, you know how many clubs in the world dream of that? We've got it in our history. Why is that no longer at the centre of this club? Why has that just been pushed to one side? And we get fans, and no disrespect to them, like Elias, like Alexander, and thousands more, by the way, who just can't come out and just say, do you know what? Yeah, what about that history? What about what we're about? What about Bill Nicholson, Keith Birkinshaw? Even Terry Venables, who won us the FA Cup. What about these people? What about what's happened to us?
But at the end of the day, still, how can you force them to sell up? It's like they're making so much money. What is the point? Why would they need to sell up? Because a few fans are shouting, Enoch out, Levy out, Daniel Levy, we want you to go.
We can't force them to do anything, right? We can't force anyone to do anything. But what we can do is make their position untenable. All right, I'll give you an example, guys. All right, and it's personal to me, but it's the only way I can relate a story that makes sense. I came off Twitter. I'm completely off of it. I'll never go on it again. Effectively, the pressure from my arguments on there got so much, I had to step away. So the same applies to any human being in a given situation. If we put enough pressure on this ownership through the internal protests in the stadium, through all these channels right now, pumping Enoch and Levy conversation, through eventually people stopping from buying kits, stopping from buying merch. It's a snowball right now. We're at the beginning of it. Eventually, Nike will pick up the phone and say, Daniel, this is not a good look on our global sports brand. The NFL will pick up the phone and say, Daniel, I don't know how it works in the Premier League. We do not have this look on the NFL. The corporate box holders who pay £300,000 a year for a box, who use their boxes to entertain clients, they're going to pick up the phone and say, Daniel, I can't bring my clients here and entertain them when I've got 60,000 fans going berserk at you, dude. I can't have this. It's not a good look on my business. People that do the AIA, the insurance company who sponsor us, they're going to pick up the phone. Daniel, what the hell is going on at your club? I'm sponsoring that shit. You've got me plastered all over your stadium. That's what happens. The pressure comes from people that make decisions. Nike, AIA, corporate box holders, Sky Sports. You think they want a half-empty stadium, and that's their advert for the Premier League, a stadium with no noise, no atmosphere, when fans stop turning up. Eventually, all these factors, they add up, and then the owner himself has got to make a decision about the chairman and about himself. And that does take time. But if we just accept, all right, this is what you've got to ask yourself. Which pain is worse? Going through the pain of a 1 or 2 year battle against the owners, or another 22 years of pain watching this shit happen, guys? Another 22 years of 14 more managers, 6 more Paratici, Don cooking, I don't know what he's cooking. Another 20 years of invisible top 4 trophies. As a Spurs fan, guys, anyone watching the show, what do you want? More years of pain being called Spursy, bottle jobs, Tottenham flop Spurs? 20 more years of that? Or let's get together as a fan base, stop being divided, and get behind the change that is needed for us to at least have a shot at it. There's no guarantees that new owners, by the way, will be better, but there is a guarantee that this lot are going to carry on as they are. Because look at what's happening right now. Just look at it. It's happened again. And that's the point I'm trying to make.
All
All right. Big up, Stel. Thanks for coming on today, mate. And we'll see you next time.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Stel. Big up. And I think that is all we have time for today. We've got a few super chats to read through before we go.
And also, just important to know, Liverpool 2-0 down.
2-0 down, yeah, nearly half time there.
And had 2 goals ruled out for VAR.
Yeah, I know, crazy. Bob Spur says, big up Elias. He's the perfect example of letting recency bias cloud over the bigger picture. Stand back, look at 22 years, then make the judgment. Awesome Or says, new owners is needed as soon as possible. Poch can't, Jose can't, Conte can't. One thing is in common with all the managers. Owners want dividends, not soccer. Thoughts? I mean, I think we've given you our thoughts over the past 3 hours. Jory with the super chat says, Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, the best real estate plan in football. Come on, you Spurs. And Jaden says, agree with Stel, we need to push these owners out. And there was one that we missed out from Georgiou as well, and he says,
you got it.
Ali Gold Poor, he said, blamed Conte and sympathy for Levy. I didn't see that from Ali Gold. I thought Ali Gold was laying into the ownership of the past couple of days, but we haven't watched it. But anyway, that is all we have time for today. And good 3 hours of Tottenham therapy for you guys. Coming up next, we're going to do our player ratings and 5 takeaways. So action-packed day here at We Are Tottenham TV. But thank you everyone for coming on today and coming and watching us. We'll see you very soon. Like, subscribe and comment. And as always, come on you Spurs.